Bonjour à tous. Hello on this first Wednesday stream. We're going to see how it goes. I suppose that there's going to be less people because it's not the weekend. But the entire point of the Wednesday streams is going to be to actually be able to have a higher volume of philosophy videos, which is important for me and something that I enjoy doing. So I suppose that the majority of people are going to watch this as a replay. The way this is going to work, therefore, is that this stream and next week's stream is going to be a lecture. So we're going to be doing a Jung lecture on chapter 3 of Modern Man in Search of a Soul. And then we're going to do dream analysis. I promised you guys that that would happen, that we would do live analysis of your dreams during the stream using Jungian archetype and Jungian symbolism, and I've prepared a full dictionary of symbols for that. So before we start, hi everyone in the chat. I hope that you guys are doing well. A very busy day for me. I posted a video this morning. I worked on physics reviews all day, and now I'm jumping in. I'm like barely making it at 2 p.m. What is up? Hey Shane, how you doing? Stream today, yes. It's I know it's a little bit of a surprise if you don't check the schedule, but now the philosophy streams are going to be happening on Wednesday. So you'll get 2 streams a week, some weeks, and sometimes only 1 stream. How do you change beliefs? Like if something is okay, how do I make myself believe that it is bad? Well, you have to rework your own morality, but that's more of a Nietzschean theme. Yeah, I wanted to use Thorfinn for the thumbnail because the first part of the chapter is like incredibly in line with Vinland Saga, because it focuses a lot about knowing oneself and realizing that in truth, oneself is one's biggest enemy. So once you know the enemy, you cannot be defeated. In truth, you don't have an enemy. I hope that the boy is doing okay, Shane. I just bought Beyond Good and Evil. Will I become edgy after I read it? Yes, you will. Because the first few reads, only the edginess of Nietzsche is going to transpire. And then you will start to get the rest. And the rest is the important part. I personally read Beyond Good and Evil more than 10 times. And I'm actually rereading it now because I'm working with a client that I teach philosophy to, who might be on the chat, who focuses on Beyond Good and Evil. And it's even just discussing it with someone else, I rediscover themes that I didn't even discover the first 10 times I read it. So why are you not using Patreon? Because Patreon takes a cut of the revenue that you make, which I don't like. Coffee doesn't take a cut. 100% of what you give me goes to me. PayPal takes a cut, but not coffee. And 2, coffee is just much better for what I want to offer, and especially what I will be offering in the future, because it allows communications. I have private messages exchanges with people. Did Jung lift heavy? No, but he was an avid mountain climber. He was Swiss. So not very surprising. How does coffee itself make money? That is a tremendous question. I have no idea. I think that they have a function where if you want, for example, to be able to have commission or to sell merch on your coffee, which is very convenient, then they take a cut, but not before that. And since I don't do merch and I will never do merch, I'm fine. Sorry if this is unrelated, but thoughts on the conjugate system, very unrelated. I think the conjugate system actually is decent for hypertrophy, and that paradoxically, Louis Simmons was one of the best bodybuilding coaches, because a ton of his principles are aligned with what it takes to build a big body. And it's not surprising that a lot of people at Westside, yes, they were on drugs, yes, they were equipped, but they had very good triceps, for example. So I, as a bodybuilder, will always copy the methods, even if they're from non-bodybuilders. Did Young secretly have 18 inches arms? I don't think so. Have you read Fight Class 3? I've heard about it. I've heard good things, but I haven't read it. Are you ever going to do a video on Zarathustra? Yes, we will be doing streams on Thus Spoke Zarathustra, actually. When we'll be starting the dream analysis? The dream analysis starts after the lecture. So I suppose we're going to do 2 hours of lecture, because chapter 3 is where things start to get interesting and dense. So it's impossible for me to cover chapter 3 in one go, because Jung pulls on each, essentially, where he shifts themes halfway through the chapter. So we'll focus on the first half, which is the title of the video, and then next week we'll do the second half, and each week we'll do 1 hour of dream analysis. So I'm going to put the link directly here Send your dreams up, up. All right. So if you want to send your dreams, you can just do a coffee in the pin message. The entire point being that I will try to interpret dreams in the chat, but you understand that it's going to be very difficult because I need to be able to read the thing without it going away. So via the coffee, you can just like give a coffee or a membership, up to you. I don't really care. That way you can private message me and send me the full thing so that I can actually look at archetypes and stuff. When do we go through Man from Underground? That's a great question. Maybe I'll do a poll because after Jung, of course, I wanted to start with Jung because some of you guys have been waiting for years for this. After that is going to be either Nietzsche or Dostoevsky. Can you also send supernatural experiences? If you want to, but I can't analyze them. Nietzsche, Jung the Goat. Okay, well, I think that's it. That's enough time for people to get in, and for the people who are going to watch the replay, they'll be able to like go and advance throughout the thing. So we're going to start with chapter 3. If you have missed chapter 1 and chapter 2, not the end of the world. You can just go rewatch the replays. But chapter 3 is very interesting. Chapter 3 is called The Aims of Psychotherapy, which sounds extremely technical, but it really isn't, because we can always trust Jung on like just diverting and talking about things that are very interesting. So we're going to talk about what Jung called the morning and the afternoon of life, where he separated the periods of your existence throughout the morning when the sun is rising, the afternoon when it starts to set, and then the twilight when it sets, so when you get closer to death. And that is going to be applicable whether you're old or young, so that's going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about personality types, being extroverted, introverted, how that affects you in your day-to-day life. And of course, we're going to talk about the development of neurosis and how it relates to dreams. So, did you read the whole book? The whole red book? Yes. All right. As always, I will try to keep an eye on the chat, but most likely as a lecture, I won't be able to. So I will stop periodically to ask you questions to see if you are actually able to follow and to answer your questions. All right, let us begin. The Aims of Psychotherapy, Chapter 3. It is generally agreed today that neuroses are functional psychic disturbances and are to be cured by psychic methods of treatment. But when we come to the questions of the formation of the neurosis and of the basic principles of therapy, all agreement ends, and we have to acknowledge that we have as yet no fully satisfactory conception of the nature of the neurosis nor of the principles of treatment. So, a simple introduction to the chapter where Jung tells us every single psychotherapist and psychologist agrees that neuroses are detrimental to the development of the individual, that there are disturbances, so negative, and that they are to be cured, and they should be cured via a psychic method, so psychotherapy, for example, or therapy. The two work. But it really becomes an issue when we discuss how these actually form. And this is really where Jungian philosophy shines, because Jungian philosophy attempts to prevent the formation of neuroses and not just solve them. At the risk of being a complete nerd, which I am, if you have watched Jujutsu Kaisen, a world in which exorcists attempt to destroy curses that are created by the negative feelings of people, you will come to understand that Jujutsu Kaisen has a lot of Jungian themes. And there is a character in that show, a woman, who is trying to get people to control their negative emotions so as to make sure that curses aren't born in the world. In a sense, she's trying to do what Jung is doing here, trying to teach people how to tap into the unconscious so as to not create neuroses, so as to have less work down the line, less curses to exercise, and less work as a therapist to help people feel better. Two trends of schools of thought have gained a special hearing. Their teachings by no means exhaust the numerous divergent opinions that have come to be expressed in our time. So the two schools that we covered last time was the Freudian school and the Adlerian school. The first one focused more on the sexual portions that create neurosis, and the second one more on will to power, meaning the ability of the individual to be well adjusted to society. And Jung tells us that both of these work, but that these are not the only two options, that there are numerous options. If we were to exclude such opinions as simply wrong and worthless, we should be rejecting this particular disposition or this particular experience as a misinterpretation. That is, we should be doing violence to our own empirical material. So essentially, what he's saying is that in the scope of what I just described, if you refuse to take anything that doesn't fall within these two scores as valid or relevant, then what you are doing is you are doing violence to empirical material. And this again speaks to Jungian psychology and philosophy that accepts archetypes and thought processes that exist outside of it, which is extremely important. The wide approval, which greeted Freud's explanation of the neurosis in terms of sexual causation, and his view that the happenings in the psyche turn essentially upon infantile pleasure and its satisfactions, coincide with a relatively widespread tendency or spiritual current. So, this links to the notion that a theory of types doesn't fall from the sky. It has a lot to do with the person that produces it. We discussed last time the fact that Freud had some interesting incestuous relationships with some of his family members. We also can discuss here the fact that it was born, this theory of sexual causation was born in a society that had a peculiar view towards sexuality, a view that was negative. It was negatively charged. And so for someone to come and say that sexual portions will create neuroses that have been accepted as negative is absolutely logical. It's a natural continuation. Jung continues, I should call it a manifestation of the collective psyche. Here we're talking again about the collective unconscious. Let me point first to the works of Havelock Ellis and Auguste Forel and the contributors to Anthropophyteia, also the attitude to sexuality in Anglo-Saxon countries during the post-Victorian period, as well as to the widespread discussion of sexual matters in general literature, which had already set in with the French realists. So here, as a tangent, when it comes to French and English literature, there used to be a time period where sexuality was described and seen as this taboo thing, to the point that a mere story about a countess that goes on to fuck one of her servants was seen as incredibly taboo and was actually banned at the time in England. Today, it would make us laugh because we are much more sexually liberated. But this was what was going on back then. And if we want to, in a sense, relate it to a place in the world, we could look, for example, at the difference between Europe, with countries like Germany, for example, and the United States. The United States has a Puritan culture, meaning that something, for example, as a woman taking the sun with her breast out is going to be frowned upon, if not illegal. In Germany, no one is going to bat an eye because they have a completely different view of sexuality, meaning that a therapist or a psychiatrist from Germany is very unlikely to produce the same theory of type than someone from the United States. Freud is one of the exponents of a present-day psychic predisposition that has a special history of its own. Then we have Adler, and with Adler it is the same. The approbation with Adler permits the same inference. A great many people find satisfaction in explaining their troubles in terms of an urge to power, arising from a sense of inferiority. So here, the idea is that you are going to be receptive to the type of psychology and psychiatry that best aligns with your needs. And this means a lot because we have a tendency to think that psychiatry is something that is done to the subject and the subject is idle. That is not true. The subject is going to respond, he's going to vibrate with the type of psychiatry that is directed towards him. And if psychiatry fails, it doesn't mean that the method doesn't work. It means that the score doesn't align. This is key because it means that we are putting the individual at the center of self-improvement, at the center of this development that we want from Jungian psychology and Jungian philosophy. You are going to be responsible for finding your own method. This is psychology given to the people, given to the crowd, given to you watching the stream right now. Okay. Do we have any questions? We are just starting, but I just want to make sure I don't lose you because I just get like carried on. No questions so far. We can continue. Excellent. How did you get so damn handsome? I don't know. I think it's the beard because it hides the double chin that I get when I bulk. It would be an unpardonable error to overlook the elements of truth in both the Freudian and Adlerian viewpoints, but it would be no less unpardonable to take either of them as the sole truth. Both truths correspond to psychic realities. The term psychic reality is extremely important. Okay, we are talking here about something that is empirical and tangible. This is not up in the air. This is not questionable. Everyone exists within a certain psychic context. Your society, your culture, your country, your religion, all of that matters. And it can be studied. It should be studied. And we'll see that when we analyze your dreams. Because I will always ask you, hey, what is your religion? Because, for example, if you see a maiden in your dream, this means something if you're Christian, and it means something completely different if you're, for example, Jewish. It would certainly never have occurred to me to depart from Freud's path if I had not stumbled upon facts which forced me to modify his theory. It seems hardly necessary to add that I hold the truth of my own views to be equally relative and regard myself also as the exponent of a certain predisposition. When I read this, I know I can trust Jung because he's not saying everyone else is subjective and I am objective, like many people do, unfortunately, especially on YouTube Fitness. He's saying, no, we are all subjective. That is the beauty of it. We should be modest and grant validity to a number of apparently contradictory opinions, for we are still far from having anything like a thorough knowledge of the human psyche, another sign of Jung's modesty and humble demeanor, where he recognizes that while humans have barely explored 20% of the oceans, we might have explored 2% of the human psyche, if I'm being generous. So when people tell you it's already mapped out and we have a map of the human cosmos when it comes to the way the brain works, absolute bogus. We are at its infancy. Psychology is a baby science, and we have so much to explore, which is exciting in my opinion. I think the reason why people claim that we're done is because they're afraid. They're afraid of the infinity that is contained within their brains. I have met with a fair number of failures which were far more impressive to me than my successes. The psychotherapist learns little or nothing from his successes. They mainly confirm him in his mistakes, while his failures, on the other hand, are priceless experiences in that they not only open up the way to a deeper truth, but force him to change his views and methods. There is a quote that I think says, he who leaves the mat with a victory learned nothing. And it is something that jiu-jitsu coaches in Brazil and Japan repeat to their students a lot. A victory teaches you nothing. You just followed your game plan and you won. Cool. If you lose, now you have something to work on. Now you have homework because you know that you can improve on that. This applies to everything in life. It also applies to the gym. And this aligns with what the title says. This is how you end up with no enemies. What is an enemy? An enemy could be failure. Well, guess what? If you see failure as an opportunity to get better, it's no longer failure and it's no longer an enemy. All right, now we're going to get into the thick of things. So this was sort of the introduction of the chapter. Now we're going to talk about this dusk, noon, and twilight of life. What Jung separates in his head and his theory of type when it comes to the way people should think about this improvement, this self-improvement. Because if you're 15, it's not the same as if you're 55. These are the psychic contexts that I was talking about just earlier. They're extremely important. So let's get to that. Jung tells us that it was with older patients that I had the greatest difficulties. Okay, we're going to stop here. Why? Why do you think that Jung had the most difficulties with old patients? Bingo, because he wasn't old at the time. It's as simple as that. This is the reason why someone like me is going to be extremely efficient at giving young men who are in their late teens to early 20s advice, because I'm already past that. But if you're 35 to 45 and you're entering that afternoon stage, I can guess, but I cannot say for certain that I know what I'm talking about because I haven't been through it yet. This is just a class in school, yes? It's in the title, it's lecture. If you clicked on it, don't act surprised. I'm your teacher here, but I take questions. In handling younger people, I generally find the familiar viewpoints of Freud and Adler applicable enough, for they offer a treatment which brings the patient to a certain level of adaptation and normality. apparently without leaving any disturbing after effects. With older people, according to my experience, this is often not the case. It seems to me that the elements of the psyche undergo in the course of life a very marked change. So much so that we may distinguish between a psychology of the morning, a psychology of the afternoon, and a psychology of the twilight of life. As a rule, the life of a young person, pay attention if you're young, is characterized by a general unfolding and a striving towards concrete ends. His neurosis, if he develops one, can be traced to his hesitation or his shrinking back from this necessity. All right, let's stop here and analyze this. If you have listened to any Jordan Peterson lecture, you've already heard what I'm going to tell you. When you are young, the number one factor of neurosis is fear of growth. It's fear of stepping into your role as a grown man or a grown woman. It's fear of responsibility. This is what creates what we call the puer aeternum, the eternal child, the man child. It's a man who clings to this innocence, who clings to his childhood because it's safe, it's comfortable. The flip side of that, the responsibility, the freedom is terrifying because it also means freedom of failure. You're not guaranteed to succeed, but this is how you become a man. Again, rereading what is said here, Jung talks about a shrinking. I think the verb shrinking is perfect and says a lot here. You should expand. As a man, when you grow and you come into your own, your vital energy should grow with it. With your body, of course, but also with your mind, with your opportunities. This will not last forever, right? You will expand like a supernova, and then eventually you will collapse onto yourself. And that collapse is old age. Then you die. That is natural. But what is not natural is to refuse to expand in the first place because of the fear of what is to come. So that is for young people. But the life of an older person is marked by a contraction of forces, what I just described, by the affirmation of what has been achieved and the curtailment of further growth. His neurosis comes mainly from his clinging to a youthful attitude, which is now out of season. Just as the youthful neurotic is afraid of life, so the older one shrinks back from death. So as you expand, as you reach your apex and your zenith as a man, you don't want to let go of that. So when that slowly starts to slip away from your grip, what do? You close your hand. You don't want to let it go because you think if I let go of that, I'm no longer a man. Untrue. You're entering a different stage in your evolution as a man. You are now an older man, and there is nothing wrong with that. This childish attempt at remaining young through these actions is a sign that you have not grown. It is, in a sense, a sign of youth, but not a good one. Is the stream lagging for anyone else? It looks like it's laggy on my end. No, just me? Not really. Cool, 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 cool. It's fine, perfect. Okay. Still going to plug the fan on to give the laptop some release. Much better. Little lag, yeah. I see sometimes the screen. As far as as long as the sound is okay, I think we're good. Because the majority of people I know listen to these streams without actually looking at the screen, which is great. So only young people actually wish to be young. No, everyone wishes to be young because, and this is a completely different discussion, but it's interesting that you asked the question. Youth is seen as the paramount. It's seen as the one desirable trait for women and for men. And so the entirety of society is told you have to strive towards staying young. If I attempted to add a Marxist lecture into this entire thing, I would say that it's because capitalism needs people to stay young, because when you're young, you're productive. And so capitalism benefits greatly from telling people that being young is the best thing and you should cling to it. That's just an interpretation. But I've noticed a lot of attempts at people to remain young via means like plastic surgery that are ridiculous and very childish when you think about it, because you're not fooling anyone. Like, I think it's Bill Burr that used to say that. Yes, I'm citing Bill Burr in the middle of a Jungian lecture, who used to say that people who do plastic surgery, they just look younger, but in lizard years. So you can tell that they're old, but now they just look freaky. And I agree with that. It's ridiculous. Don't men often wish to be older, at least up to a point? At least up to a point. When you're young, and usually it's not when you're young always, it's when you're between the age of roughly 13 to 16, 17, you want to be a man. Why? Because you want to have the attributes of puberty. But once you have them, I don't know any 20-year-olds who tells me I want to be 30. I've never met one, because that's the point where you start to realize that your expansion will lead to a collapse. All right. Where was I? We're talking about old people and what happens to them. So let's go over it again. The neurosis of the old person differs from that of the young. He is clinging to what he used to have, and he doesn't want to accept the fact that he is fading away, because the fading away of the strength is the sign that death is to come. One of the saddest scenes I've ever witnessed in my life was when I was in a bus in France, and there was an old gentleman who might have been in his 70s who was with a cane, and at some point he had to leave the bus, and he was not able to leave the bus without assistance because the step was way too steep. And I remember he had a complete meltdown, and he started to like shout and berate people and say, when I was younger, I used to squat X amount of weight and I was an athlete, and you don't know, I'm still a man, etc. What was happening? He was clinging to something that he lost. And in that moment, I did not find him pathetic. I found him extremely touching because I saw myself in him. I was able to project myself thinking, wow, what will I be at his age? Most likely I will feel the same way. But the goal is in your old age to have replaced that strength and vitality with something else, and that something else should be wisdom. If you look at the way ancient societies, primitive societies organize themselves, the young men with the vital elements go out and hunt. They use that strength to feed the tribe, and the old men are still valued greatly because of the wisdom they accumulated throughout the hunts. So every single man has his role. The child and the infant is the future of the tribe. The man is the vital, in his prime man is the present of the tribe, and the old man is the past of the tribe. And they all work together, and they're all valid. And no one at any stage in our development looks at the other stage thinking this is better. They all know that they are equal. Modern society has completely destroyed that. We no longer value old people, and sadly, we don't protect young people anymore. But that's a different story. I think that all of that is connected. So that is for old people. Jung tells us that what was a normal goal for the young man inevitably becomes a neurotic hindrance to the older person. In the case of the young neurotic, what was once a normal dependence on his parents inevitably becomes, through his hesitation to face the world, an incest relation which is inimical to life. Fascinating. How many people do I know that cling to their parents, cling to the parental structure, cling to their mom? I grew up with men who are raised by single moms who are now my age, they still live with mom. That is what Jung describes as an incest relation. Doesn't mean that they're having sex, it means that there is an emotional incest going on, that the man is not able to separate himself from the figure of the mother, that he's not able to emancipate himself. This is something that moms do. Moms constrict, especially with young boys. They constrict the energy, they constrict the ambition. Why? To keep the boy safe, but viciously also to keep the boy young, to keep the boy a boy. Because instinctively, the mom knows that if she allows that expansion of energy, that boy is going to become a man and is going to leave. So if you can manage to constrict that, he will never leave. And now you have your boy forever. This is extremely selfish. A lot of women do that instinctively. It is the role, usually, of the man in the household to be like, no, open up your hands, allow the boy to take risks, allow the boy to make his own experiences so that he can become a man. This is why if you grow up without a dad in your household, unfortunately, you are at risk of developing neurosis. That could be an entire book. One that I will not be writing, but one that would certainly create a lot of backlash considering the amount of praise single moms tend to get nowadays. All right, so that was for what happens to a young person that is not able to liberate himself from the parent. Following, it must be remembered that despite all similarities, resistance, repression, transference, guiding functions, and so forth, have one meaning when we find them in young people, while in older persons they have quite another. So this is the psychic context that Jung was talking about. For him, the age of the patient is an indicium, an indicia, an indice. It's a detail that is going to be very important to be able to diagnose. According to my view, it is a blundering technique to treat from the Freudian standpoint a patient of the type to whom the Adlerian psychology applies, that is, an unsuccessful person with an infantile need for self-assertion. Conversely, it would be a gross error to force the Adlerian viewpoint upon a successful man whose motives can be understood in terms of the pleasure principle. So we spoke about that in the previous lecture, and I told you, for example, that someone who fits the incel archetype must be treated through the Adlerian principle because they don't respond to the Freudian principle. And sadly, unfortunately, modern society attempts to treat them through the Freudian principle, or they accuse them of being sexually motivated, which they're not. Deep down, they're not. The resistance of the patient may serve as valuable signpost. I am inclined at the start to take deep-seated resistances seriously, strange as this may sound. This modesty on the part of the doctor is altogether appropriate in view of the situation today. There exist more or less individual psyches which refuse to fit into general themes. And these are the broad categories I was talking about, where yes, they exist. And if you refuse to see them, you murder the empirical evidence that is given to you. I also wrote systemic medication next to the book in my notes. And by that, I mean that oftentimes, sadly, psychiatrists, when they are faced with something that they don't understand, they just say, fuck it, give them drugs, and we'll see if it works. Well, oftentimes it works, but you did not cure the neurosis. You just numbed it. And we have already seen that the neurosis is a sign of an issue in the unconscious. So by ignoring it, you just make it worse. This is the reason why Jungian psychology and philosophy is not well regarded in academia, is because of that. It doesn't align with the current approach and the modern practices of the field. Do we have questions? We see that especially in depression treatment, yes. Not to say that it's not possible that you require medication to feel better if you're depressed, but how many people don't do any physical activity, for example, and are prescribed antidepressants? Why? Why don't you try and get them to be active first? What is the number one thing to do when young then? Find out who you are, so spend time on yourself and develop an identity for yourself, and then expand into that identity. Find your path, especially. I'm not even asking you to walk the path, because so many people, they don't even have to do that. You just have to find the path first. Should men seek therapy from men there? Yes, I think so. I think that what a woman expects and requires from therapy is completely different than what a man requires. So, for example, I know that women will require longer sessions, and they like to talk because they like to be listened to. That's great if it works for them. It doesn't work for men. For men, you need shorter sessions, in my opinion, and you need something more actionable. Look at self-improvement. What is self-improvement if not a mass form of therapy for men? And what does it require? Actionable items, list of things to do, a discipline to develop, etc., etc. This tends to correlate greatly with people becoming better. How do you find who you are? That's a great question. Spend time by yourself. There's no like magical miracle method, but I guarantee you that if you numb yourself with cheap pleasures, with media that doesn't elevate your mind, with all sorts of partying and drugs, you will never find yourself. And nothing is sadder than someone who is in their 30s and doesn't know who they are. How can you help a friend who has spiraled into taking pride in his own mental issues? Unfortunately, that friend is pretty far gone. Not lost yet, but pretty far gone, because unfortunately he has went down the path of comfort. Instead of facing the neurosis and the shadow, which is extremely uncomfortable and scary, he instead has turned his shadow into a friend. He has made the neurosis a part of his personality. And this is why this is even possible in the first place, society has stopped stigmatizing that behavior. It is no longer acceptable to point out at people who are polyadapted and say, you are polyadapted. Now you're going to be called psychophobe or whatever the fuck phobe. This is not doing any service to people who have neurosis, but it's the path of least resistance, and so people go down to it. When is the dream analysis? At the end, but I don't think I told you guys that you can already send your dreams so that we don't have to wait once we are past the lecture. So you go on the coffee page, you pledge or you send the coffee, then you send me your dream. That way I'll have a nice little list that we can go on to. Are you on the book? What does it look like? I have zero definition. All right, let us continue. Where was I? Here, systemic medication. the extroverted and the introverted attitudes. So here we're talking about new indicia, new psychic context. These attitudes I also take to be important as likewise the predominance of a particular psychic function over other function. The great variability of individual life necessitates constant modifications of theory, which are often applied by the doctor quite unconsciously, but which in principle do not at all coincide with his theoretical creed. So let us think for a second about that. Why would being an introvert or an extrovert have anything to do with the development of neurosis? Well, it's because it influences the conscious life. So if you are an extrovert, there's a chance that the neurosis you're going to be developing have to do with your social interactions. Whereas if you're introverted, there's a chance that you've developed them by yourself. So they're going to be of completely different natures. Just like you would not want to treat someone who is well adjusted with Adlerian psychology or someone who is perfectly well, who is poorly adjusted with Freudian psychology. All of that is the theory of type. I am personally extremely introverted. There are some people whose attitude is essentially spiritual and others whose attitude is essentially materialistic. It must not be assumed that such an attitude is accidentally acquired or springs from some misunderstanding. Okay, we already have to stop. So, what does it mean to be spiritually inclined in the chat? What do you think? Because a lot of people seem to not understand what it means to be spiritual. Having a life purpose, you can be materialistic and want like a Lamborghini and you still have a life purpose. All right. People say religious in the chat, and I would point out to that to say that you are part of quote unquote the problem because you have, in a sense, reduced spirituality to religion. Religion is an aspect of spirituality, but it's not the entirety of it. More connected to your own emotions? Not really. Caring about your mind, you have people who are materially oriented who care about their minds. To believe in an underlying reality outside of the material. That's closer to what I want to hear. Exploring your own inner workings, okay. The things you value most are non material. That's also very valuable. So I think we're going to go with these two. One, you believe in the unseen. And by the unseen, I think, for example, of the unconscious. I'm not talking about ghosts. I'm saying you believe that there are things that cannot be touched, cannot be captured, cannot be measured, that exist. That means you're spiritual. Two, the things that you value the most are not of this wood. This could mean many things. It could mean, for example, that you believe in the kingdom of heaven. Then you're spiritual and you're religious. It could also mean that you believe in a soul. I know that people tend to relate soul to religion. May I remind you that the concept of soul existed before the creation of Abrahamic religions. The animalistic and the animist cultures of Africa, for example, or Asia, believed in something called a soul. The Greek and the Romans, before Christianity, believed in a soul. So, what we're talking about is an essence that is intangible, that you cannot capture, that weighs nothing. This is what it means to be spiritual. So, I personally am spiritually inclined. And this means that my neurosis and my issues in life tend to derive from that. These attitudes show themselves as ingrained passions with no criticism or persuasion can stamp out. Super important too. We're not talking about quirks. If you're spiritual, you cannot be talked into not being spiritual. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were born with it, but it's a psychic context you developed as you grew older. Likewise, if someone is mentally oriented, good luck trying to get them to become spiritual. It is very, very difficult, which means that if their problem in life is linked to the spiritual, they're fucked because they're going to have to do a lot of work. There are even cases where an apparently outspoken materialism has its source in the denial of a religious disposition. So we're not going to go into that. That's super interesting. But in a sense, it's a form of rejection of the self, where someone who seems to be like chasing riches does so to, in a sense, not have to face his own inner inclinations. I keep looking up because it's snowing outside and it's super pretty. It's the perfect, comfy environment for a stream. I hope you guys are having a good time. I know I'm enjoying myself. Indicia, it might appear to me, as in a medical parlance, that this or that treatment is indicated. So it's like a symptom in a way. But psychotherapy has assuredly reached no such degree of certainty, for which reason our indicia are unfortunately not much more than mere warnings against one-sidedness. So it's an addition, an addendum by Jung saying, these are not symptoms. Just because you know that someone is spiritual or that they are sexually inclined does not mean that suddenly you know what is going to solve them or to fix them or make them better. You have a broad idea of what might work, but it's not an exact science. The human psyche is highly equivocal. In every single case, we must consider the question whether an attitude or so called habitus exists in its own right or is perhaps only a compensation for the opposite. So, this is what we spoke about with the conscious and the unconscious, when oftentimes, when there's an issue in the conscious, the unconscious compensates for it, and this creates neurosis. It seems to be that in psychotherapy, especially, it is advisable for the physician not to have to fix a goal. He can scarcely know what is wanted better than do nature and the will to live of the sick person. So that's also very interesting. If you ever get a disease and you go to your doctor and he diagnoses the disease and he says, take that drug, and you say, well, I don't think so because my instinct tells me otherwise, the guy is going to laugh in your face and say, just fucking take it and shut up. That is medicine. With psychotherapy, it doesn't work like that. You cannot strong arm a diagnosis, you cannot strong arm a solution or a fix if the person is unwilling to receive it, because via the nature of the placebo effect, which is much, much stronger with psychotherapy than actual medicine, it is guaranteed to fail. He also talks about nature. Nature is a catch all term, but here we're talking about the great underlying unconscious that is nature that we don't really understand or really control. The great decisions of human life have, as a rule, far more to do with the instincts and other mysterious unconscious factors than with conscious will and well meaning reasonableness. This is hard to hear as modern men because we're all about reason and we think that we are so far removed from the animal kingdom that we think we don't have instincts. That is untrue. The majority of your actions are driven by instincts, which are themselves driven by the biology of your brain that was linked to the evolution of the species. Reason, as created by the Greeks 2000 years ago, is still in its infancy because if you look at the time we spent on this planet, we barely discovered this technology, what Dune's author would call a psychic technology. And we're still really, really bad at it. People like to think about the next step in the evolution of man. I think that the next step is going to be that we are going to be less and less emotional and more reasonable. But by doing so, we will also become less and less man. So it'll be interesting to see what we become. Do we have questions? I love Dune. I love Dune very much. Are introverts born or you can become one? I think it's part nurture and part culture. Because there are kids who are like 2 years old who are all over the place. Like I have nieces who are twins, and one of them is like clearly an extrovert at 2 years old. She loves to go up to people. She wants to be carried around. She wants kisses. She wants to play. The other one, she will sit on a plaid and she will look at the horizon. I've never seen a toddler do that. She will like contemplate life. She's at a point where she's already at the contemplative stage and she's only 2. She's a complete introvert. If you carry her, eventually she'll like tap you on the shoulder, like, okay, time out. Like, I need a break from this. And then you put her down, and then eventually she reaches out again. It's very cute. All right. Well, Truth says a society with only reason won't thrive. We see that in Dune with the not necessarily the Bene Gesserits, but all of these like guilds and like creations that attempt to just do away with emotions and just like be purely calculating, and they always fail. It's very funny. Okay. Oh, this one is really good. Listen up to that. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Each of us carries his own life form, an indeterminable form which cannot be superseded by any other. This aligns with the message of the stream. You are an individual. Sure, you're human. Sure, you have similar traits, but there is something in you, an indeterminable form that is unique and that cannot be superseded by any other. This is your true self. Whatever it becomes is up to you, but it's there. And here, and I wrote, as always, the very edgy and the very cheeky me wrote, normalization of mental illness to be poorly adapted nowadays is healthy. If you read this, what Jung is also saying is that Well, yes, you might have neurosis, you might have a mental issue or a disorder or whatever, but if this is not aligned with you living a good life, we cannot claim that this is your indeterminable form. We have to accept the idea that this is an hindrance to your form, that this is a neurosis, and that therefore it must be done away with. Sadly, modern society seems to have given up. And I say that as someone who is on the spectrum. Most likely, I've never gotten diagnosed, but a lot of the things that I've read about autism now make a lot of sense as a 30-year-old. I'm quite glad that I was never diagnosed, because I don't think being taken and being treated in a delicate and completely like special way because you're special is good for you. I firmly believe that autism is a spectrum and that it's possible to get more autistic. It's possible to get worse and worse at social interactions, to become more and more just called up upon yourself and to not expand. That happens when you do this. When you take the autistic person and you say, okay, you're fragile and you're not made for this world, so let's protect you. Horrible decision, because eventually you'll have to let go unless you're willing to protect that person forever. So it's best to slowly introduce that person, to give them the skills to cope through therapy, and that way you end up with a well-adjusted person. I see a lot in online spheres and spaces autistic people who talk about masking as if it was a bad thing, and they say, I'm tired of masking. Everyone masks. We all have to mask. If you're autistic, you might have to do it more. But this is important because this is what being well adjusted is. Sure, that mask is not your true self. Your true self is underneath, but it allows your true self to exist in the world. And if you don't have that mask, you will never find your true self, because your true self is only revealed in society. And I say that as someone who is deeply antisocial. I don't like people, but I've come to realize that my growth as a man and your growth as a man also comes with that, with the ability to step out. Any questions? Okay, how can you tell that you're autistic? Well, I personally found out because of the many things I was doing as a kid that were seen as abnormal by my parents and the people around me. That to me felt really good. So, for example, I would only walk on my tippy toes, only, and then eventually my mom just like told me, stop doing that, or I'm not taking you outside again. So I had to stop. I also, when I was a kid, I would, when we would walk around, I would get bored. So I would imagine in my head little characters, little Pokemons, like jump around buildings, and I would follow them with my head because I was able to actually see them. And my mom told me to stop because she told me that it made me look crazy. I had a really tough time reading people's emotions. So I was very awkward as a kid, and I didn't really manage to like fit in with people. So I had to start to mask very early on, which gave me great abilities to lie also, because that's mostly what masking is. It's just a constant lie. Lots of things. The dead giveaway was the fact that when I was 2 or 3, I would spend my entire days in front of the TV watching nature documentaries, and I would remember the name of every single animal, and I would recite them to my mom at night. Which also led to a very annoying quirk of my own self when I was younger, where I would go up to adults and I would quiz them about animals, and if they didn't know, I would tell them, "Wow, like I'm I know that, and I'm like 4 years old. Why don't you know that?" And it made people really, really mad. I remember one time I got grounded because an adult said that sharks are mammals, and I was like, "No, they're not. They breathe underwater. They don't have lungs. They're fish. They have eggs. They're vivipar. They're fish." And the guy was like, "No, they're like whales. They're mammals." I was like, "Fuck you. I think I told the adult you're dumb." And my mom was like, "Yeah, you don't talk to adults like that." So I was grounded. It's bullshit. I was right. Fuck that guy. Okay. Anyways. Let us continue. None of these considerations, of course, prevents our doing everything possible to make the lives of patients normal and reasonable. The goal of therapy is to make life normal and reasonable, especially if you have a mental illness. To treat the mental illness as something that is normal is counterintuitive for therapy. We must follow nature as a guide, and the course the physician then adopts is less a question of treatment than of developing the creative possibilities that lie in the patient himself. I love that. I love the way it's rephrased. Instead of saying you have a problem, you have an illness, and we're going to kill it, which is negative and a subtraction, instead, we're going to develop your creative possibility so that you can find your true self, which is an addition. This is Jung speaking. My contribution to psychotherapy is confined to those cases in which rational treatment yields no satisfactory results. So this is in a way, an explanation as to why the methods might sometimes look a little bit out there and too spiritual inclined. It's because it is only applied when the rational methods don't work. We spoke in episode 1, in lecture 1, about the case of a woman who was actively dying of disease, and modern medicine was not able to actually diagnose her. And Jung analyzed her dreams, and he was able to diagnose her disease through the dreams. Unfortunately, she still died from it because it was too late. But still, about a third of my cases are suffering from no clinically definable neurosis, but from the senselessness and emptiness of their lives. It seems to me that this can well be described as the general neurosis of our time. I'm going to be reading that again. About a third of my cases are suffering from no clinically definable neurosis, but from the senselessness and emptiness of their lives. It seems to me that this can well be described as the general neurosis of our time. Loss of meaning and no direction in life is the general neurosis of our time. This is why the majority of modern people are miserable, even though they live in an age where they have the most comfort, they have the most ability to survive with their physical body, but their spiritual essence is dying because it's being starved. This is the paradox of the modern world. We have killed magic, we have killed the spirit, and so there is nothing to feed our spirit. This is why people who become religious, so who become spiritual, tend to say that they have gained a meaning to their life, that now it all makes sense. It's not just limited to religion. This is something that you can do by yourself. It's just much, much harder. It is difficult to treat patients of this particular kind by rational methods. So we're talking about the people like this who have lost the spiritual, because they are in the main socially well-adapted individuals of considerable ability, to whom normalization means nothing. Society tells these people, you have a job, you're doing just well, you have food, you make good money, you have an education, why are you miserable? In a materialistic capitalistic system, you should be very happy. Well, these people are not happy because they don't have this spirituality. The resources of consciousness have been exhausted. The ordinary expression for this situation is, I am stuck. If you have ever felt stuck and there was no material solution to you being stuck, so we're not talking about you not being able to pay rent, we're talking about you paying rent, you have money, you have education, you have everything, you still feel stuck, the spiritual is where it's at. This is your solution. If you refuse to see this, you're going to be spinning your wheels forever. Could spirituality then just be considered cope from a materialist perspective? Yes, because someone who's materialist would just say it doesn't exist because you cannot quantify it. But at the same time, bravery, I think anyone who's a materialist would tell you that it exists, but how do you quantify it? How much does it weigh? How much can I sell it for? Zero, and yet it exists. When to my conscious outlook there is no possible way of going ahead, I am therefore stuck, and my unconscious will react to the unbearable standstill. So oftentimes this is what happens. You get stuck in your development as a man or a woman, you have stopped growing. Your mind doesn't like that because it wants to expand, it wants to keep growing. Or flip side, you are starting to collapse and you're trying to cling onto the expansion. It's the same thing. You are not in line with your nature, you're not in line with what would make you happier. What happens then is that your spirit reacts to this feeling of being stuck, and the neurosis manifests as a reaction of the unconscious trying to warn you that there is an issue. This was all covered in episode 1, in lecture 1. This coming to a standstill is a psychic occurrence so often repeated in the evolution of mankind that it has become the theme of many a fairy tale and myth. If you are into Jungian psychology, you know that he was big on mythology and symbols. And he was right to be, because mythology is the expression of humanity's unconscious. If you look throughout cultures that had no connection from like La Mesopotamie to the Greeks, to the Romans, to the Far East, all our stories are similar. They all tell the same story of the same hero who goes through the same path. Why? Because we have the same psychic context with slight differences. The stories the Greek told about Hercules, about Achilles, 2,000 years ago, we still tell today in Hollywood. We still haven't changed. When dream review, at the end, and some water. Please stay hydrated as you listen. I know that it can be quite hypnotic. Well, I'm actually very surprised to see the amount of people on the stream, because essentially we have the same amount of people on Saturdays, which maybe I shouldn't be that surprised, because the people who follow philosophy on this channel are the diehards and they're like really invested. So I salute you guys. I'm glad that you're here. I'm having a good time. And for the people who are asking why stream here, why is it like a random Wednesday stream? It's not. It was actually planned. All of the philosophy streams will now take place on Wednesday. So we'll do Mishima, we'll do Nietzsche, we'll do Dostoevsky, we'll do everything that we want. We'll cover everything that we want to our heart's content, and it will always be reserved on the Wednesday. That way, we'll have a much, much higher frequency of philosophy. All right, let's continue. Getting stuck is a typical event which, in the course of time, has evoked typical reactions and compensations. We may therefore expect, with a certain degree of probability, that something similar will appear in the reactions of the unconscious, as, for example, in dreams. And Jung is doing my work for me because he's starting to introduce the concept of dream analysis that we will be doing at the end of the stream. In such cases, therefore, my attention is directed more particularly to dreams. This is not because I am tied to the notion that dreams must always be called to the rescue, or because I possess a mysterious dream theory which tells me how everything must shape itself, but quite simply from perplexity. I do not know where else to go for help, and so I try to find it in dreams. These at least present us with images pointing to something or other, and that is at any rate better than nothing. I have no theory about dreams. I do not know how dreams arise. I am altogether in doubt as to whether my way of handling dreams even deserves the name of method. So much to unpack here. First, the fact that Jung is like, hey, I don't care about the science of dreams. I don't care how they manifest. I don't care that apparently they seem to like just create themselves in our brain 10 seconds before we wake up. This doesn't matter. All I know is that we are a hyper advanced species that somehow has developed the ability to dream. We have spent evolution points that are very precious, if you know about evolution, into something that people say is just random. It just happenstance. That is not possible. It would be like saying that having a thumb is just a quirk of evolution that grew like just because. No, it's because we can do this. It's because we can do this. It's because it allows to do this and to throw and to catch things and to like twist. This is why we're dominant. So if the thumb does that for us, what do the dreams do? That is the thought process of Jung. And his answer is the dream must tell us something. And where does it come from? Well, it comes from the unconscious. It comes from underneath the surface. And what is in the unconscious? Well, it's the happenings of the day that we repressed. So it's the neurosis. This is the thought process. And in my opinion, it's absolutely genius. But he's telling us this is what I believe. And I don't know how much to interpret in that. All I know is that there is a message, and I will try my best to analyze it. I will do the same for you guys. I know that if we meditate on a dream sufficiently long and thoroughly, if we take it about with us and turn it over and over, something almost always comes of it. I even may not give first importance to the question whether or not studying the dream gives a scientifically variable result. If I do this, I'm following an exclusively personal aim, and one which is therefore autoerotic. I love it. The practice of a scientifically inclined approach to dream analysis, and rather any type of scientifically inclined method, is autoerotic. Why? Because it allows one to say, I am right because this is objective truth, which it's bullshit, but people love to masturbate themselves to science. I must content myself with the fact that the result means something to the patient and sets his life into motion again. I may allow myself only one criterion for the validity of my interpretation of the dream, and this is that it works. Take that to heart. 2 points to dreams. One, any interpretation of a dream is valid if the patient sees meaning in it and if it allows them to keep moving forward. So to be unstuck, everything is connected. If you feel stuck because of lack of spirituality, luckily for you, you have developed an ability to tap into the spiritual, even if you don't believe in it. It's called dreams. So for people who are like, I'm not spiritual, well, half of you isn't, but your unconscious self, when you're sleeping, sure as fuck, is spiritual because it dreams. No one is so materialistic that they have managed to turn their sleep state into pure relaxation with no dreams. That is not possible, thank God. And then we look at the dream as a method that works or doesn't work. If it doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board and you try to find another way to unstuck the person. And if it works, good. Who gives a fuck where it came? Who gives a fuck if the interpretation was correct? What is even correct? Is there a paper somewhere that states that this is the correct interpretation? No. The one that is correct is the one that works. The contents of the initial dreams are infinitely varied. In many cases, they point directly to the past and bring to mind what is forgotten and lost to the personality. It is from these very losses that one-sidedness results, and this causes the standstill and consequent disorientation. So the idea is that here, a dream, for example, could be like a voice saying you left something. There is a part of your personality that was important to you, that was part of who you are, of your true self, that you abandoned, and this was a mistake. Go back and fetch it. I have an example for you guys. When I was a teenager, I used to play football. And at some point, I gave up on football because I was getting tired of it and bored. And since then, I've been plagued with dreams of me playing football. What is that dream trying to tell me? That dream is trying to tell me, hey, your ability to stay true to your word and to actually stick to things, you left it when you abandoned your comrades. You have to get it back. I'm working on it, but I'm still getting that fucking dream. Sulismo, what Jung thought of lucid dreams, the conscious and the unconscious having a relationship. That is a great idea. I don't know. I would have to research it. But you just made me realize something. This is unconnected, but in truth, it sort of is. It's connected to bodybuilding and dream analysis. I've recently started taking taurine, so the thing that they put in Red Bull, before I go to bed, and holy fuck, the impact it had on my sleep is insane. I didn't even take it for that. It's just that it was cheap and I wanted to experiment. But I've had crazy vivid dreams and also very deep sleep. I seem to enter REM sleep and stay in it without waking up, where before I used to wake up. So if you want to give it a try, taurine is like $10 for like a pack that lasts you 6 months. You can try it. I had some terrifying dreams too about bears, like half human, half bears chasing people through houses. We might analyze that dream later. Okay, let's continue. All our previous activities become uninteresting, even senseless, and the goal towards which we strove lose our values. That is when you get stuck. Some would even say that this is a description of depression, and they would be right. In these cases, it often happens that other possibilities of development of the personality lie somewhere or other in the past, and no one, not even the patient, knows about them. But the dream may reveal the clue. In other cases, the dream points to present facts, as for example, marriage or social position, which have never been consciously accepted as sources of problems and conflicts. And I wrote in the margin, the unconscious awares us of the conscious and gives it meaning. So if you refuse to do the meaning in your life, the dreams will tell you that meaning and they will make it hard. They will turn it into nightmares until you face that consciousness. T'es en live jusqu'à quelle heure, chef? We are live for 3 hours. So the lives are Wednesday, Saturdays. It's always 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. always. And Wednesday is going to be the dedicated the dedicated philosophy streams. The real difficulty begins when dreams, as is often the case, do not point to anything tangible, especially when they show a kind of foreknowledge of the future. And this is what has gotten Jung accusations of being a mystic or shaman or a guru. Because if you read this, you might think, oh, he's saying that dreams allow you to predict the future. He continues, I do not mean that such dreams are necessarily prophetic, but that they anticipate or reconnaître. What he means by this is that if you have a dream and that dream somehow predicts something in your future, it's because this is part of a pattern that your conscious mind has recognized, has encrypted in your dreams to tell you, hey, this keeps happening, it will happen again, pay attention. And then it happens again, and you're like, oh, my dream predicted that. No, it came from your past. Your brain knew it was going to happen again, and it looks like a prophecy. At the risk of sounding like an iconoclast, this is the nature of prophecies. Even in Dune, if you look at the prophecy in Dune that Paul keeps reliving in his brain, it's a prophecy based on his past and the past of the human species, because he knows that the natural continuation of his reign is going to be genocide. And of course, he is proven correct. This absolutely will be discussed in the in the Dune video, because there will be an entire part about Jungian philosophy. As I have said, the stimulating effect is the sole criteria, and it is by no means necessary that we should understand why such an effect takes place. This is especially true of dreams containing mythological images, which are sometimes incredibly strange and baffling. You might have such dreams. Sometimes it is hard to interpret the dream based on the past or your current event or psychic context. And in these cases, we have to go look at what is called a dream dictionary of symbols, because these symbols, these mythological images, were passed down through the eve of humanity, through culture, through text, and are present in your brain whether you know it or not. And sometimes the dream will express something through you with a symbol, because what? Why would your brain do that to you? Why wouldn't your brain just tell you outright? What do you think? So you figure out the rest out. Okay, that could be a thing, but it's not very effective. The brain is very effective. Think of it. I see protecting us. Okay, but in what way? Why would conveying the truth via mythological symbol protect you? Weakness stopping us from doing something. I think that it's because the brain knows that if it told you outright, you would freak out because the harsh truth may be too much. Yes. So instead, it forces you to go through the work of interpreting the symbol for yourself, which is going to lessen the blow. And we'll get to see that, I think, when we look at you guys' dreams. The image of the sick child in the dream at first proved baffling. Okay, sorry. I think here we're going to go into an interpretation. So this is a patient case, right? So he is going to talk about the interpretation that he did of a dream. In a long initial dream of one of my normal patients, the illness of his sister's child played an important part. She was a little girl of 2. Sometime before, the sister really had lost a boy through illness, but otherwise, none of her children were ill. The image of the sick child in the dream at first proved baffling to him, undoubtedly because it is in no way fitted in with the facts. Since there was no direct and close connection between the dreamer and his sister, he couldn't find in his image law that was personal to him. Then suddenly it occurred to him that 2 years earlier he had taken up the study of occultism, and that it was this which had led him to psychology. The child was evidently his interest in the things of the psyche, an idea which I should never have hit upon of my own accord. Looked at from the side of theory, this dream image can mean anything or nothing. For that matter, does a thing or a fact even mean anything in and of itself? We'll get back to that. So here is what happened. There was a patient who had a clear connection to his sister who lost a child, and he kept dreaming of a sick child. And so the natural connection was, well, that's why. But they couldn't understand why. Why would the psyche keep showing me this image? What do I have to learn from it? Nothing. So they were at a standstill until they realized that the child was a symbol. The child represents the mind, the curious, the innocent mind. And it was sick. Why? Because the man had taken an interest in occultism. So he had, in his own emotions and feelings, poisoned the innocence and the purity of his soul. And this is what the dream was trying to tell him, that he had created a neurosis for himself because deep down he felt bad about what he did. And so he had to step away from occultism to be able to allow the child to heal. This is not to say that in Jungian psychology, occultism is necessarily bad. It's just that the man thought it was bad, but he wasn't able to accept it for himself because he had an interest for it. He was inclined towards it. And I just repeat that, but Jung says, does a thing or a fact even mean anything in and of itself? That tells you a lot about the person we're talking about. Exactly with the same with Nietzsche. It's all about the perception, the perspective, and the interpretation. Things don't mean anything in themselves. We can only be sure that it is always the human being who interprets, that is, gives meaning to a fact. And that is the gist of the matter for psychology. It impressed the dreamer We almost lost the stream, guys. It's too much. We almost went offline. I'm just horrible with technology. I'm warm too. Jesus. Sorry, I'm getting naked. Oh, ça fait du bien. Jesus. Yeah, the laptop almost went out because I get so into it that like I don't pay attention to the fact that the laptop is like telling me, hey, like please plug yourself. All right. I love the face that I made when I saw that I was about to go out. Okay, where was I? No, that's not that. That's chapter 4. Yep. So here, perspective. Okay. We're here. Sorry about that. That is the gist of the matter for psychology. It impressed the dreamer as a new and interesting idea that the study of occultism might have something sickly about it. Somehow the thought struck home, and this is the decisive point: the interpretation works, however we may elect to account for its working. By such slight changes, which one could never think out rationally, things begin to move and the dead point is overcome. This is the key aspect. Sometimes we are stuck in life and the solution is not rational. It is in the unconscious. It is irrational. I look jacked as fuck. I not only give the patient an opportunity to see what occurs to him in connection with his dream, but I allow myself to do the same. I give him the benefit of my guesses and opinions. If in doing this I should open the door of the unconscious, to so called suggestion, I see no occasion for regret. It is well known that we are susceptible only to do suggestions with which we are already secretly in accord. That is massive. It's the concept and the idea of inception, the notion that if you are to have someone change their life, most likely they already know it. It's just that they need someone else to tell it, to say it to them, so that they can then latch onto the idea as their own. No harm is done if now and then one goes astray in this riddle reading. Sooner or later, the psyche rejects the mistake, much as an organism does a foreign body. So, for people who might be, in a sense, a little bit skeptical of dream analysis, thinking, oh, what if it creates neurosis? Oftentimes, it doesn't have the power to do that because the body and the psyche rejects the mistake. Meaning that the patient is not going to vibe with the interpretation, so they won't do anything with it. Simply help the patient to find what it is that activates him. This is the role of the psychologist. It is of special importance for me to know as much as possible about primitive psychology, so the psyche of primitive man before modernity, mythology, archaeology, and comparative religion, for the reason that these fields afford me priceless analogies. This means that whenever he is talking to a patient, Jung is able to always look at things, symbols, and branch them out and plug them into what he knows the patient believes in terms of culture and religion, etc., etc. And that way, he has a much higher chance of actually providing the patient with something valuable. If you speak to someone who is Muslim and you know nothing about Islamic culture, you're not going to be of much help because you're going to miss the symbols. You don't know what is going to activate the patient. To enter a realm of immediate experience is most stimulating for those who have done their utmost in the personal and rational spheres of life and yet have found no meaning and no satisfaction there. In this way, too, the matter of fact and the commonplace come to wear an altered countenance and can even acquire a new glamour. Before we analyze that, I have something in the margin. Spirituality boosts fact based logic like knowledge or the unconscious and not the other way around. Yes, it actually helps. It all depends on how we look at things and not on how they are in themselves. the least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. So, to go back on the paragraph before, to enter a realm of immediate experience is most stimulating for those who have done their utmost in the personal and rational spheres of life and yet have found no meaning and no satisfaction there. We spoke about the people who are materialistically, in a sense, complete, but still don't know what they want from life. They don't have a meaning to assign to life. And he follows by saying, in this way, the matter of fact and the commonplace come to wear an altered countenance and can either acquire a new glamour. It is this notion that dreams solely enter into the realm of rationality. But actually, this is pretty much the end of this lecture. Maybe I should just do the full chapter 3. What do you guys think? Do we have enough material for a pure dream analysis for like 2 hours? I don't think so. So maybe I should just continue. That's too bad. Whoa, sorry. Let me see. I'll check the coffee, and if we have a bunch of dream analysis, maybe we'll stop. I don't know. Up. Let's see. Okay. I think I have a lot of dreams. That's old. Okay, so we have a bunch of dreams. So I'm going to be I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have already prepared next week's stream with like a title and everything. So I think I want to keep that in my back pocket. Stop the lecture here, and we're going to do some dream analysis. So if you want to send your dreams, you can do it on the coffee page. All right, so we're going to start. I will also be talking about some of my dreams, but let's begin with your dreams. And the way I'm going to be interpreting them is I will send you questions back on coffee, and I was trying to understand your psychic context, and then we're going to look at the dream dictionary to see if we're stuck. So let's begin. We have NH Dick Soccer, who sent, I think, 3 dreams. First dream, standing on a stage in front of an empty audience in the dark, blinded by a bright white spotlight. I'm stammering at the faceless crowd. I watch their silhouette as I'm crushed by the light. Okay. So here, first, you're on a stage. So this is your, in my opinion, it's your relationship with society and with people. All right. But you say it's an empty audience. So there is no one. So this could be, for example, a fear of rejection. It could be a fear of the way you're going to be received by people and that people are not going to like what you have to offer. So there will be no one to receive it. And you are in the dark. But you are not in the dark. Everyone else is in the dark. So this could mean the fact that you are, in a sense, uncomfortable because you're not able to really know who you're talking about, who you're talking to, who is in front of you. So it's a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of a psyche that is not your own. You're blinded by the light. So the light here, in terms of archetype, could mean many things. It could just be an artifact of the dream so that you are visible and no one else is. It could also be that this light has a function that takes away your sight. So it reduces your ability to interact with people. And the nature of the light is what must be defined here. What do you think the light is? And you're stammering at the faceless crowd. So you are not comfortable. You are clearly suffering. It's not a good dream. And you watch their silhouette as you are crushed by the light. So definitely, I think the light means something. What do you guys think the light is? The light could be, it could be religion. The light could be shame. Ouais. Self-consciousness. I think that the theme of the dream is self-consciousness. The light could be the public eye. Yeah. So that's the first dream, but there are many. And usually when there's a continuation of dreams, Jung tells us that the dream becomes more and more, in a sense, shaped out and fleshed out. So, dream number 2, these are in scenes. I perform a sexual act on a woman that doesn't exist. She becomes my girlfriend. We're flirting in a pub. Apparently, she put my name on one of her earrings. I asked her why not both. She implied that she could then be able to take one out to flirt with a celebrity crush without being taken. So here, I think that the key aspect, the key theme is clearly insecurity. One, because you perform, as you described, oral sex on a woman that doesn't exist. If, when looking at sexuality, this puts you in a submissive position towards her because you are the one giving and she's the one taking. She's the one taking the pleasure. She becomes your girlfriend. We're flirting in a pub. She put your name on one of her earrings, but not both. This means that you don't own her fully. This is also an aspect of your insecurity, that you even want to own her, that in your dream, she labels herself with your name. But in your dream, funnily enough, you don't get 100% of what you want. You only get one hearing. And when you ask the dream creature that you created, remember, she tells you that it's because that way she's free to take it out to go with another man. So it shows that in that dream, you get a woman, but she's not fully yours. Why? Because you're not fully confident. This is a message, and this is only scene number 2. Now, let's look at scene number 3. Your sister died in a cave. You don't have a sister, so it's reminiscent of what happened to George in it. Okay, I don't know what it is, but essentially your fictional sister in the dream dies in a cave. We park above the cave and you go in on foot. The cave is at the risk of collapse. There is a line above which you would be safe. We quickly retreat above the line. Some other people come on motorcycles. We introduce ourselves to them. They insist on searching the cave and they go into the cave with their motorcycles. And they do it very aggressively and you follow them and you jump in. The cave collapses behind you, leaving no way out. You enter a fantasy world with purple foliage and a pink sky with roads. The road path has become vertical, and because of the accumulated speed, we're able to go up a decent way before stopping on a ridge. All right, so let's begin with the disappearance and the death of your sister in a cave. The image of the sister is, of course, the image of the familiar. It's an extension of you. I noticed that it's feminine. So let's see if my dream dictionary has something for sister, because that could be interesting. Actually, up. Actually, there's nothing for sister. I find this very strange. Okay, so no meaning for sister. So we'll stop here. You park above the cave and you go in on foot, but you realize that the cave is at the risk of collapse. So here is also insecurity. You don't want to go in because you're afraid you're going to lose your life. And you retreat above the line, and then people come on motorcycles, and these people are not you, and they are not afraid to go into the cave. So that's interesting. But in a way, the way they do it is way too reckless. So the cave is a place where you would be actually justified in not wanting to enter because it's actually quite scary. But you do it anyways because new characters introduce themselves to you, and these might represent recklessness. And I say that because of the motorcycles, the fact that they're very loud and very dangerous. So they're the part of you that have this impulsivity and aggressivity. And you make the mistake in the dream of listening to them, and then the cave collapses. So the dream tells you, hey, all of this talk about insecurity, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be insecure because sometimes it protects you. So this is the continuation of the theme of the insecurity. But we also see that you still manage to make it out because, one, the place where the cave collapses is not that bad. It seems to be pretty. And on top of that, there are roads. I would go as far as to say that maybe here the dream is trying to tell you that your initial fear, first off, your sister acted as bait to get you to enter the cave, to get you to exit your comfort zone. And you resisted that because of your insecurity. Then the people on motorcycles forced you to do that. So you followed your wild instinct. And when you entered, you were proven correct. Your insecurity was, in a sense, justified because it collapses. But you then find out that nothing actually bad happened. To me, this is a sign that your brain is trying to tell you that, yes, taking risks can introduce you to danger, but oftentimes it introduces you to new opportunities instead, to a more beautiful world and to new paths, because the end of the dream is you go up a new path. So by going underground and taking that risk, you discover what looks like a paradise. I think that this is a very solid series of dreams, and I think that the analysis is pretty on point. What do you guys think in the chat? All in agreement in the chat? If you have anything to add or like you disagree, please do it. That's the entire point of the streams and of these lives. Why do you get dreams like that? I'm reading them off of coffee. People can send them on coffee. I'm crap at interpreting. I'm really good at interpretation, maybe too good. Please explain on how insecurity can protect you. So sometimes you are insecure because you perceive that you are not quite ready yet to do whatever endeavor you're going to go into. And so it's your psyche telling you, hey, maybe prepare, maybe grow a bit more before you go into it. But the flip side of that is that sometimes the insecurity prevents you from doing that growth and doing that work. This is what we saw in the dream. What if you just don't have dreams? You have dreams, you just don't remember them. I personally started taking taurine before going to bed, and now I remember all of my dreams, maybe even too many of my dreams. And I've had people I know dreams come true in bad scenarios. What does that mean? It means that that scenario was part of a pattern that they predicted. And because of that, they saw it coming. This is what Jung was saying in part 1 of chapter 3 that we just covered, where there is no prophetic, there's no prophetic nature to dreams. It's just that your brain is very smart, it recognizes patterns, and if you refuse to do anything about the pattern, it feeds it back to you during the dream. Why is bro dreaming about people curled up in a cave? Because that's symbols. That's how dreams work. This is why we tend to look at dreams and say, well, that it's nonsensical. No, it makes sense if you interpret it. Do you think some dreams happen without much meaning or are too cryptic to use for value? Yes, that is the majority of dreams. And these dreams, usually, you don't remember. You remember the ones of value. Qu'est-ce que tu peux nous dire sur les rêves prémonitoires? What I just said, that they don't exist. A premonition is just your brain looking at the past and saying this will happen again in the future. Okay, that was the first. Very good dream. Thank you. Okay, now we have a new dream. Hi NH, I'm a creative person. I studied piano performance in college, and I get my best music story ideas in my dreams. One time, I dreamed that I was playing a video game while the level was a giant space weapon made from the body of a dead god. I thought that's a pretty sick idea. Another time, I dreamed that you were a villain in My Hero Academia and you were monologuing about Nietzsche. The dream I'd like analyzed. Okay, I was thinking, do you even have a dream to analyze? I dreamed that my neighborhood was taken over by Russian occupiers and there was a female soldier. I snuck up behind her and bashed her head into the corner of a table multiple times. It was very vivid and gruesome, and I couldn't go back to sleep because I woke up feeling the adrenaline. Not sure what this dream could mean, but it has stuck with me all this time. So first and foremost, we would need to know where you live. Okay, so you're living in the USA. I think that the fact that the villain and the invader in your psyche is Russian is not a mistake, and it's not a surprise. It's because this is the stereotypical villain that is being presented to you by the media. They're the big baddies right now, so of course they're going to be the big baddies in your dreams. I guarantee you that during World War II, every single person that dreamt of a bad person dreamt of Nazis. And if they were German, maybe they dreamt of Soviet soldiers. That is the psychic context. So that's the start. The fact that it was a female soldier is interesting because in the context of your dream, a female soldier would be much easier for you to defeat than a male soldier. So that could be a sign of insecurity, that in your own dream, you don't feel that you're man enough to take on another man. And the way you actually defeat her is very telling because you snuck up behind her and you bash her head into the corner of a table. So you did it very viciously. It's a vicious attack from behind. And the fact it was very vivid and gruesome is in a way your dreams attempt at forcing you to live through that reality to make you realize the consequences of that potential viciousness that is hiding into you. To me, that is a manifestation of the shadow. I've had dreams like this in the past. I've had a dream where I essentially just like massacre a group of people, and it's like I'm a serial killer, and I'm not myself in the dream, where it's like a spirit has taken over me and I just see my body and I just like rampage through a town. And when I woke up, I was just like you, like pretty traumatized. I think that this is a way of the brain to say, hey, you have that ability in you have that evil in you, so you have to be in control of it. You have to realize that the way you interact with the world and maybe some of your insecurities and weaknesses, contradictory to what some people might think, could actually make you more dangerous instead of less dangerous. So for you, your fear of invasion, your fear of the unknown, your fear of being occupied, all of that culminates in a response that shows your true colors. That is what I would interpret it to. Yeah. And Shane says, sometimes I'm hilariously ineffective in my violence. That is something that people dream about a lot. Or you fight someone and you punch them or you hit them and they feel nothing. There is a clear message behind it, and that is the fact that one, you lack confidence, but two, you have repressed your animalistic side and that you're not able to let go. And so in your dreams, you are completely ineffective even when you want to be effective. It is unsurprising that the majority of people who have these dreams are men and are modern men, because that part of us is greatly repressed. Home, you can just submit the dream during the stream. Some people have sent it before. It doesn't really make a difference. And Chris follows up by saying, I'll be honest, I was kind of scared. I don't wish to act on this violence against women. How should we face this? The fact that in your dream you had this, and this is key, please don't think that I'm saying that this means that you will be violent against women. It's actually the exact opposite. The fact that your brain and your dream presented this act as horrible and gruesome is the sign that you would never do such a thing. So you don't have to actually worry about that. Then we have Ethan, who sent a dream. Ethan, please check that you sent me the entire dream, because I only see one message and it starts with when the police pulled up, which to me looks like a follow-up and not a first message. Just cleaning my glasses. It's very dirty. I'm incredibly oily as an individual. The beginning was an intonation you sent. Excellent. Well, let me check. You don't have to send it again. Up. So, Ethan says, I was playing games with my girlfriend, but we are inside the game. We're in a dense city in Korea. Neither of us are from Korea. And we're approaching a coffee shop when police vehicles pull up to arrest everyone at the scene. Okay, then the dream continues. When the police pulled up, we ran towards the alley next to the store. I got there first and hid behind the wall. However, she was too late, and the police saw her and took her away very quickly. I waited a few moments and walked out, and nobody saw me despite the police still being around. Okay, so let's start with here. You're in a foreign country that neither you or your girlfriend are from. So this psychic context, this environment of the dream, is an environment where you're uncomfortable, you're not in your home, and you are therefore in danger. Then the police starts to arrest people randomly, and they manage to find your girlfriend because she didn't hide with you. When they grab her, you keep hiding. So there is something here where you might have some feelings of insecurity towards your girlfriend, or you might feel like you're not able to protect her because an outside entity, an outside agent that is threatening, puts their hands on her and you do nothing to stop that. Then you wait a few moments and you walk out and nobody sees you despite the police still being around. So suddenly you become invincible in their eyes. This could be because you have lost value. You're no longer interesting. Maybe this is the dream telling you that you have failed as a man and now you have become invisible. The dream snaps to me on the train on my phone and I receive a text from my girlfriend. She was asking if I was okay. I found it strange because I was the one who should have asked her. Okay, so in the dream, it's a second time where you fell in your duty as a man, where you should have protected your girlfriend and you didn't, and then when you should have checked on her to see if she was okay and you didn't. She's the one who did that. So to me, that the theme of the dream is your relationship with your girlfriend / women. The fact that you feel that maybe you're not enough or you're not doing enough to justify the love that you receive and the relationship. I said I was okay. She told me I was okay, and we exchanged words of affection over text. The dream snaps to the moment when I'm picking her up from the police station, and once I do, a menu pops up. You rescued girlfriend from the police station. Congratulations, with an end game button. Okay, so to me, the fact that you get that message at the end, that is a message of achievements and a congratulatory message, shows that the goal of the dream was for you to step up. It was a dream that was setting you up as the hero, and you failed 1 time, 2 times. But then when it came time to rescue the girlfriend, you managed. So this is a positive message at the end. And to me, all of that represents your relationship with your girlfriend and with women. It means that you have, in a sense, a desire to be the hero, to be the guy who steps in. But maybe you have failed to do that in real life enough times, and so your dream is trying to get you to do it more. If you're just getting here, we got done with the lecture in record time, and now we are analyzing dreams. Alexander sent, I had a dream about a snake that raised itself up and started chasing me. I climbed the stairs and entered the house. I struggled to keep the door shut as the snake kept slamming its head against it. Well, usually dreams where you are followed by an animal are pretty straightforward. It's fear of the unknown, and it's fear of the wild. And the fact that it kept like slamming itself against the door is the sign that it was not enough for you to be out of sight, that it was not going to stop, that there was something else for you to do, and that something else was to confront. That is oftentimes the case when you dream about an animal chasing you or even a human. The solution of the dream and the message of the dream is confrontation. Stop running away from your problems. You have to face them. You could also say that in your case, you allowed the snake to get into your house. So by refusing to go out and face the snake outside, you allow the snake, aka the problems, to come into your life even deeper, which shows that avoidance is no solution. Okay. Okay, let's move on to another dream. You have Chris. Chris sent, I had a dream where I was taking care of my sister's car, which is interesting because she's been going through mental issues at the moment. What could it mean? I was protecting the car and making sure that no one took the car away from her. At one point, there was some sort of valet guy inside of the car. I waited for him to leave the car, then I took the car back. So here, I would say that you're right that the theme is your protective feelings towards your sister. Since she's not doing well mentally, which is in the spiritual, you are doing your best in taking care of the things that you can take care of, which are in the material. This might be a sign that you feel powerless in helping your sister feel better because you can't have an influence on her mental illness. So you're trying to influence her material possessions to make sure that at least these are safe. A car in the modern world is how you get your job, how you get your groceries, and it's vital. So this is in a way you trying to protect something that is vital to your sister, which in connection also means that you're trying to protect her life, but not just any life. You're trying to protect her physical life because you sense that her mental life is fading away, and that scares you most likely. And the thing with the valet is exactly that. Is that the thing with the valet could also be interpreted in a way where you are also wary of people who might want to take advantage of your sister, and so you're constantly trying to like save her from like bad influences and other people. Okay, then we have Granada Toot. Interesting name. I take ashwagandha and I get the dream side effects. So the dream was that, and then the dream starts. I meet a childhood friend who I haven't seen for over 5 years, and she was goth and had muscles, not how she ever was in real life. And we just sat in a coffee shop similar to where she used to work and talked for hours. And I was actually happy. Then I woke up. All right, so I think this is a pretty straightforward dream. One, there is a projection of your fantasy onto someone that you already like. I suspect that you like girls with muscles and who are goth. And so that fantasy and dream might be unattainable for you, or you might like have a tough time accepting it and seeking it out in real life. And so you associated it with something familiar, aka a childhood friend, because now it makes it accessible and it makes it less scary and intimidating. The fact that you sat in a coffee shop similar to where she used to work, aka a familiar place, also makes a lot of sense. It's the introduction to the forbidden fantasy into a place that is well known to you, or you feel at peace, and so it makes the fantasy more accessible and more acceptable even to you. And the fact that you were happy when you woke up shows that, in my opinion, you should just lean into that and get a girlfriend with 15 inches arms. And then you say, I write down all of my dreams, and the happy ones are either me always being where I grew up or places I feel like home, and usually with people that I care about. It's something that relates to, or it's something that relates to childhood trauma, and they are very violent with people dying. Well, if you have childhood trauma, this makes a lot of sense that the dreams that make you happy are the ones where there is no trauma. And what is trauma oftentimes in childhood? It's instability. Kids love routine. They don't like the introduction of the outside force because it's chaos and it's dangerous to the child. So it's natural instinct. That's exactly what Jung was talking about when he was talking about the way the primitive and the modern mind works. This is what we see here at hand. Yes. If you have sent a dream on coffee, I will absolutely get to it. That's the entire point of the stream. So Ethan, the guy who dreamt about rescuing his girlfriend, sent some context. I've been in the US for school, and during that time, I got with my girlfriend. I think our relationship is good. However, I'm forced to move to Australia as I'm not a citizen, and my home, Hong Kong, is bad to be in. So it is up to my girlfriend to move there with me if she wants to stay a couple. My girlfriend's parents are also at war with each other, and she's taking the brunt of the stress. I feel powerless to help her with the situation, except for giving her the opportunity to leave the situation. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and it again shows the role of dreams. Your dream is trying to tell you, hey, your girlfriend needs you right now, you need to step up, and the dream is preparing you to step up. So the good move might actually be to convince her to live with you, but that is going to be up to you. Then we have JD. Oh, and JD sent a pretty lengthy dream. Okay. And he says, in my dream, I was planning to rob a bank. I walked in wearing full ballistic armor from head to toe, a mask, and carrying a duffel bag. I successfully completed the robbery and headed to my car, a dark blue Subaru that I had parked near the bank. As I reached the car, I immediately lay down beside it, noticing someone approaching from the opposite side. They opened my car door, took something from inside, and ran off. Realizing I couldn't safely keep my loot in the back seat or trunk after just being robbed, I decided to place the duffel bag in the front passenger seat instead. When I started the car, another vehicle pulled up behind me. Two women were in it, one driving and the other unlocking my trunk. To my shock, they took a purple suitcase from the trunk. I shouted to grab their attention, and they looked at me, laughed, placed the suitcase in their car, and drove off. Okay, so let's start with this. Let's start with the archetypes that I see here. First, you're robbing a bank. So you're doing something that you know is illegal and that is dangerous, but for some reason, nothing bad happens to you. You just do it successfully, and then you just go to your car. I think that what is important here is not the bank robbery, it's your attitude towards it. You have a cavalier attitude in your dream towards something that is dangerous and should go wrong, but it doesn't. So you're not punished in the dream by this. You are punished afterwards by the fact that people are able to take the loot or access the car that contains the loot seemingly with no problem. Even worse, they take things from your car that you don't even know was there. So they take a purple suitcase that you didn't even know was there. This shows that the car, the thing that you use to move around, and the thing that contains things that should only be familiar to you, is not only accessible to everyone else, it is even containing things you don't even know exist. At the risk of going too far, I would say that the car is an analogy for your spirit and for your unconscious mind. It is full of things that you're not even aware are there, and you seem to be terrified by the fact that people have a very easy time accessing it. This might mean that you perceive the psychic limit and the psychic wall around your mind as porous. It might be a sign of a fear that it's not strong enough, that people are able to access it. You continue saying, furious, I reminded myself that I still had a lot of cash on me and could easily replace what I had lost. I drove off, reached a signal, and turned left on an amber light that was turning red. Soon I found myself getting lost. So I set my GPS to guide me home. However, it kept redirecting to another route, leaving me fumbling with it to set the correct location. At that point, the dream ended. So you rob a bank, you're cavalier about it. You get to your car where you put the loot. You find out that the car is not able to contain or safely protect things at all. Then, when you leave furious, you also realize that the car is not able to get you where you want to go, and that one of the functions of the car, aka the GPS, doesn't work. So you are lost. Some would say you are stuck. If we go with the interpretation of the car as the spirit, as the mind and the unconscious, I think that the issue that is being underlined by the dream is a lack of control over something that should be only controlled by you, and also the feeling that this very something, so your spirit, will not be able to get you where you want to go. It cannot contain, it cannot retain, and it cannot even navigate. This is a sign of an uncertainty in you. You follow up by saying, that your religious background is Indian Catholic. And personally, right now, you'd say that you are more skeptical about your faith. This to me makes a lot of sense. The car represents your faith. You have started to lose confidence in the faith, in the ability of the faith to protect your spirit and to even guide you towards a good life. And these are the way your brain is forcing you in a way to face this, because to be able to realize and recognize that you're losing your faith is extremely difficult. In the life of someone who's a believer, it's not a good moment. So I think that you know where the work is. We can do all the dreams that you want. You just have to send it on coffee. That way I can have my eyes on it. We have Kirtala who sends, I look at the night sky with no stars and everything is dead quiet, but a feeling of unease is felt. I have the ability to wake myself up, but I choose to scream at the sky and the sky screams back. Well, that is quite the dream. So a sky with no stars could mean, for example, the emptiness of the universe. But the fact that the sky screams back shows that you're not truly alone. So it might be the fear of the unknown. I don't think it is the fear of being alone. I think it's the opposite. I think that it's the fear of something out there that is outside of your control that is able to scream back. Can you make a Discord? No, I don't want to make a Discord. One, because I already have enough work with just the coffee page and the channel and the streams, and two, because I don't like the atmosphere that Discords tend to foster, where suddenly the YouTuber becomes this god that like appears and everyone is at his feet. I don't like that. Rukanik, I had a dream where I talked with my bully and strangely got along with him, even though that didn't happen RL. And I woke up thinking I had Stockholm syndrome. I hate that I even got along in the dream. Yeah, the dream might just be a sad attempt at your brain at reconciling your past bullying, at putting you at like equality with your bully, like in the dream you're friends, you're equal, you're making up, but that never happened. And of course it pisses you off when you wake up because you realize that it's a sign of weakness. It's your unconscious trying to compensate for the fact that you have not yet managed to surmount the bullying in your conscious life. You have a Reddit page. I'm not the one who handles the fucking page. I also have meme pages that make memes about me. I don't own them. I would own a Discord. By the way, if you want to make a Discord for yourself and name it Natural Hypertrophy, you do it. What do you do of sleep paralysis? Does it mean something? Sleep paralysis is more of a physiological reaction to the fact that your body is still asleep and your mind isn't. Armel Rosière, I dream a lot of me fighting a lot of men, but I can't win because my power and boxing. But I can't win because my power and boxing skills are gone. Then I dream of fighting like a barbarian, and there I am super good. It might be the dichotomy between the civilized mind, so the real you, and the barbarian that is deep inside you. And it's your brain telling you that the civilized mind is useful but has its limits, and that the barbarian is still very useful in certain situations. What are the best books to get into Jung? I personally really like Modern Man in Search of a Soul. Because chapter 1 and 2 are introductions to Jungian philosophy, and then you get into the thick of things. And today we covered part 1 of chapter 3. Okay. Let's see. We have Nicola Marco who says, NH, my girlfriend relieves every day again in her dreams. It's so stunning. It happens really every day. What's going on? Thank you and merci. She might have an especially vivid imagination and a strong ability to recall her dreams. But I've never heard of someone who relieves their dreams, like their days in their entirety. That's insane. It sounds exhausting. I'm glad I don't have that. Okay, wow. Jesus Christ. Oh, so you pasted your entire... So Nitrous and Joyer pasted his entire dream journal. Okay, well, that gives us a lot of things to work with. When does that dream stop? Okay, let's start. I'm hanging out with my mom, dad, brother, and I meet a cute girl and I want to meet up. We skip to a nice bar. We meet another cute girl, which reminds me of Fanny, girl I did not like, only met for 3 days through a friend. I like her. We drink a couple of beers. She's blonde. Below the bar is a tunnel of train tracks. Holy fuck. So, okay, you meet plenty of girls, some of them who remind you of people in your life, and below the bar there is a tunnel with train tracks. From there, I can already tell you that it's quite telling that you seem to have an obsession with meeting new girls. And the fact that there is a tunnel below the bar where you meet these girls, to me, is a message of the psyche saying that there is more to these meetings than meet the eye, right? It's not just a bar. We're going to use that to keep going and to interpret the rest of the dream. I see a very little girl try to take her life by jumping on the tracks before a train, so underneath. She miraculously survives. I don't know how. I feel bad because I hesitated. Jesus, it keeps skipping. Why? I felt bad because I hesitated at first, but when I actually saw it happen, I instantly rushed towards her and picked her up. I phoned her mom. We tried to locate the mom, but to no avail. So you are meeting new girls. There is tracks underneath the bar, and you see a little girl. The little girl represents someone who is weak and needs your protection. You are able in that moment to turn away from the pleasure of meeting these new girls your age to sacrifice yourself for that girl, but you don't do it fast enough. So that might already be a way of your brain to tell you that your priorities aren't straight, that you're still way too attached to things that matter less than your duty. That could be one. But then you finally wake up to your responsibility and you pick her up. You try to call her mom, so the person responsible for her, but you can't locate her. Why? Because you are responsible for her. The child has no parent. You are the parent in this. This is your duty as a man. She represents your duty as a man. The city around you is filled with people that you know. Earlier, you had lunch with another girl. Okay. And then you find the mom. Okay, so you find the mom. You finally find the person that you can relinquish responsibility to. And she seems normal and worried at first. But at some point, she nearly completely stops speaking over the phone, and you get a strong feeling of unease. So the person that was supposed to relinquish you of the responsibility of the young girl is suddenly unable to do that. So you're still responsible. Anyway, you and the girl take so you take the little girl and you go to find her mom. Okay, please no more messages as I'm trying to read your thing because you keep like skipping the thing downwards. Okay, so you enter a journey to return the responsibility to the person that should be taking care of them. You reach a park. My girlfriend now has black shoulder long hair. No longer my mom. I slap her ass. I hope that you slap the girlfriend's ass. You have a lot of things that like are just tangential to the dream. We focus on the theme here. You make your way to an exit when I hear screams. Help me stop it. All right. So clearly in the dream, you are a hero. You're the archetype of the hero because you keep running into people who need your help. This might be because you have a strong desire in your day-to-day life of being a hero. A boy I'm unable to make out his face is surrounded by 6 guys. My instinct is to help, but I hesitate again. So once again, you want to be a hero, but there's always something stopping you. And it's this hesitation that makes you feel like a coward. And in the dream, you blame the little one, but in reality, you know that it's because you are a coward. Then your girlfriend becomes your mom again. So the fact that your girlfriend and mom starts like keep morphing might have to do with some level of like emotional incest, but it's tough to say at this point because your dream is not focused on that. Your mom wants to help, but she doesn't. Okay, so this is an additional responsibility where you're with someone who expects you to do the work, and the fact that she's a woman makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of people, everyone is afraid, so no one is stepping in. The boy's screams are not acknowledged. His brain is smashed by a sledgehammer. I'm petrified now. My whole body is paralyzed by this malevolent spirit in the air. So you are in a situation where you knew you had to step in and you didn't, and you were in a sense comforted into your lack of action by the people around you because they also didn't step in. So you in a sense became a follower. You allowed your identity and desires as a man to become a hero to be hindered by the presence of others around you. You were influenced and you hated that influence because of that you allowed the young boy to die. And you say that retrospectively, you get the feeling that it was me that was being smashed. So the boy was a representation of you. So you're the one saying that. So my interpretation in that would be to say that maybe you know that there are things that you could do to salvage your inner child and you're not doing it. And maybe this connects to the theme of the hero. Maybe you've always wanted to be a hero. It's the archetype you want to fit in, but you keep being a coward about it. And so you betray your young self and your child self. My mom is standing in front of the exit with my brother. I pray they will be ignored by the murderous thugs. Yet I don't help them. I rush away from the scene with the little one. So it's you running away from your responsibility. Then you run into someone who says, why didn't you take a video? And you are baffled. A later, you run into your dad on a bike and you're annoyed by him. Okay. One, you run into a friend who says, why didn't you take a video? This response pisses you off because instinctively you know that it's completely just uncivilized and disgusting to film someone getting killed. To me, this is another way of your brain saying, yeah, maybe this is disgusting. And you didn't film, but you didn't interact. You didn't actually try to step in. So it's very vicious. You see how the brain works and how the symbols work. You have attempted to create this Malek character to make yourself feel better because he's a stand-in that allows you to say, well, okay, I didn't save the boy, but at least I didn't film like that guy wants me to. But it doesn't change the fact that you know that this is not enough. This is an excuse. And then you run into your dad on the bike and you're annoyed by him, but he did nothing. So what is the dad? I think that if you read the young child as a you, I think the dad is an older you. And you're annoyed by him because he is the person that should have stepped in, and now he's just on a stupid fucking bike. He never became a hero. That's a great dream. That is a great dream. It started really weird, but it's a great dream. Thank you for that. And someone says he saved the feminine part of himself and he let the masculine die. That is quite deep. That's quite smart. Yeah, the little tunnel part with the girls at the start didn't make much sense to me, but maybe there is a sense to that. Yeah, this is fun. As expected, dream analysis is really, really fun. My friend Citrus and Nitrous Enjoyer, I'm going to go and cover the other people's dreams because you sent like a lot of them. I will get back to yours if we run out. And next week will be another dream analysis anyway, so we'll have plenty of time. Okay. Okay, so gratitude, we did that. These are not dreams. Okay. We have Cav. A few months ago, I had a hyper-realistic dream set in my garage gym. After a heavy squat session, very fatigued legs, walking to the door with my friend in front of me. I then hear a very loud sound, similar to a bear growling or something, and my friend opens the door, seeming to not hear it. I yell at him to close the door, but it's too late, and before he can, a huge black dog pushes his way through and charges me. I go to kick its head as hard as I can and yell, but wake up before I actually kick and end up kicking into empty air while laying down in my bed. I had so much adrenaline, I was shaking, and I have no idea what the dream was from. First off, you dreamt of a black dog. Black dogs in every culture, in every civilization, always mean the same thing, and it's never a good thing. It's always the symbol of something dire to happen. So the fact that a black dog tried to make his way into your house and then managed means a lot. We're going to read the rest of the dream because full of little details that make a lot of sense. So after a heavy squat session where you're fatigued, so you're in a state where your ability to react to incoming chaos and problems is limited. And you're walking to the door with a friend in front of you. So he's preceding you. You hear that there is a loud noise growling outside. So you know that there is trouble ahead, but your friend seems to not know. So he opens the door. This is the archetype of someone who introduces chaos into the house. When you were aware that there was a problem, this person wasn't. You try to get him to close the door, but it's too late, and the dog pushes himself in. So the idea is that the dog was waiting outside, and he was waiting for someone stupid enough to invite him in. If you look at the Legend of the Vampire, and this also applies to Native American versions of the vampire, every single time they can only be invited in. So they cannot break in. That black dog could have just completely destroyed the door, but he didn't. What does it mean? The theme here is the idea that problems that come into our lives are invited. We create them. The black dog was invited by your friend. So this means that you might have a certain degree of suspicion towards people in your lives because you suspect them of being responsible of problems happening to you. It might also be distrust towards family members, maybe even a fear for their safety because clearly your friend is stupid in the dream. And so it's you in the dream thinking this person is not able to defend themselves. They cannot see signs of chaos. And so they invite chaos into not just their lives, but also my life. And it's very telling that when the dog enters, your friend does dick, and you're the one who has to step up. So it's again, you thinking, wow, every time there is a problem, I don't even cause it. And on top of that, I'm the one who has to actually solve it. And you go and you scream and you kick the dog. So you're trying to get rid of the problem. But before you can kick it, you kick empty air. So the problem is never solved. It's reoccurring. And this is the nature of reoccurring dreams. It's telling you, hey, that black dog is something in your life. You can only solve it and kick it in the conscious life. Until you solve it, I cannot stop it reoccurring in the unconscious. Usually, with dreams like this, they morph as they reoccur. If you have the morphed version, as Jung says, we would learn so much more about what happened in that specific dream. But a great dream, and that's an archetypal dream. Actually, let me go into my dream dictionary to see. Boom, dog. Black dog. A black dog in a dream symbolizes depression, anxiety, or fear. It may represent a feeling of being overwhelmed or a sense of impending danger. Okay, then we have a dream by Hom. The dream starts with a bunch of math formulas. I had been practicing in the past days, flashing over a black screen. I was solving particular problems I was going to be tested on soon. Every step was for forming in front of me and quickly disappearing. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in my home country as a soldier in active warfare. Okay, so let's stop here. If I'm not mistaken, you're in prépa, which is a very demanding type of curriculum you can follow in France. I think that the dream is pretty obvious from the start. You are practicing math and you're trying to solve formulas, and they appear very quickly in front of your eyes, which represents the pace that is imposed on you in prépa because it's extremely demanding, it's extremely fast. Eventually, the formulas form so fast and disappear so fast that you're no longer able to follow, and you're transported in your home country as a soldier. So it's in a way your brain saying, if you're not able to actually make it in prépa and you're not able to solve these formulas and be good enough, you'll be back home and a soldier. So essentially your life is going to be completely just given up. Then you say at a certain point, this Tulu looking monster popped up and there was black smoke going all over the place. And I started fighting it with everything I had. All the formulas were sort of overlaid on top of the entire thing. And I was still solving the math problems simultaneously to fighting the monster. I'm going to go deep because you sort of shared that with me, but I apologize if this is me going too deep into your privacy. From what I know, I'm not going to cite the country, but you come from a war-torn country. So the fact that you dream of yourself being taken from the very safe country where you are now back into your home country that is being bombarded, and a creature like Tulu-looking monster is fighting you, I think we both. I don't think I'm even allowed to name the entity without the stream and the channel being deleted. But I think we both know what Tulu represents in this case. It's the entity that is actively hurting your people and attacking your country. And the fact that during that you are also thinking back of the formula shows the dichotomy between your two lives. There might also be a part of you that feels guilt because you are no longer in your home country. And so you are no longer fighting the monster and you are safe. And instead of fighting the monster, you are fighting math formulas. And then all of a sudden, it's like my brain function, it's my it's like if my brain functioned to recognize objects had completely disappeared and I couldn't make sense of anything I perceived. And the dream suddenly cuts to me being in a blue garden, surrounded by thousands of Greek statues. Many were faces, others were fully statues. That's where it ended. So the fact that your brain loses function to recognize objects to me is death, right? It's a representation of death, that you're not able to actually interact with your environment anymore, and you're not able to make sense of what is around you, and then you're transported to what looks like to me a form of heaven. So that's you dying in your dream. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that reveals a lot about you. Dreams are anti-immigration. Depends who you are. One dream per person, right? We'll do one dream per person for now. But great dream. Okay. You can keep sending your dreams. We have another 50 minutes to interpret them. Then we have Cyprus is Hellenic. My dream. I'm a 20-year-old Eastern Mediterranean male. But 1 or 2 years ago, I had a dream where I was standing in pitch blackness with only the front of my feet slightly lit up. A black shadow, human figure, swiftly moved right up to my face through the darkness and with his hand flicked my left temple. I then woke up and my head was hurting primarily on my left temple. All right. It would be very important for me to know your religion because a black shadow human figure, the first thing I thought about is a jinn. But your name is Cyprus, so I suppose you're Christian Orthodox. And if you're Christian Orthodox, it might mean something completely different. And it moves right up to your face through the darkness, and with its hand, it's flicking your left temple. So the temple is the palace of the brain, is where all of your like cognitive ability is. And the fact that it flicked the left temple and not the right temple might also mean something depending on your religion, because the left hand and the right hand have completely different meanings in certain religions. And then you say, yesterday I had a dream where I was running from the police. Lots of you guys running from the police. But it's normal. The archetype of running from the police is running from authority, so it's a form of guilt. The police represents the people who are supposed to, in a sense, prevent people from taking actions against society. So it's the sign that you know you've done something against your fellow man that is bad, but no one knows about it. But you're still feeling guilty about it, so you have it appear in your dreams. And you jump in a field of dry straw and didn't move. I was lying in the same position in my bed, IRL face down. In the dream, I then woke up in the room of some girl. Okay, so you run away from the police. You go into a straw field and you play dead. Especially you play possum. And then you wake up in the room of some girl. I don't know where I am. It seems like she helped me or something. I don't know. She was naked and then proceeded to have sex with her, which ended very quickly. And I woke up. Okay, I can't say that on stream. She wasn't hot or ugly, more on the skinny and pale side. I don't know if this is because I know someone who has her physiognomy and I don't consider her hot, but I would smash. I'm a virgin, blah, 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 and I have these dreams every now and then, which I can tell is just pent up sexual tension. Yeah, I don't see much. I think the connection in your dream is interesting. The fact that you run from the police and that then you end up having sex might mean that you have a certain degree of repression towards sexuality in the first place, where you feel like this is something bad to be hidden. And the fact that the way you lay down in the straw field is face down, so your eyes and your face are hidden, and the fact that you wake up in a dark room before you have sex shows that this is an act you only feel comfortable doing with your face covered without anyone being able to see you. So I think this is what I would take from your dream. Yeah, there are certain things that I cannot say on stream. Even to me, I have my limitations. Okay. And then we have SDK. Came out of my room. Okay, so this is the dream right away. Came out of my room. First, I looked back on it. I made my way out and downstairs. Lots of rubber ducks and blob dinosaurs. I went too far downstairs and lost connection with dream awareness and decided to go up the 2 flights of white stairs. It was all dark and I was wearing a headlamp. So this is all over the place, but already from this, I get a lot. It's just, without the context, I can't say much, but you come out of your room. Your room is the place where you feel the most familiar and the safest. It's the place where you spend the most time as a child. Oftentimes, it carries signals and archetypes of childhood. So you coming out of the room is, in a sense, you coming into your own as an adult, as a man. You make your way out and downstairs. So you come down from that place of familiarity into the unknown, but you're still surrounded by rubber ducks and blob dinosaurs, which represents childhood. So it's the sign that you are, even when you're trying to emancipate yourself, you are still surrounded by these memorabilia that connect you back to your childhood. It might be you clinging onto that childhood. And then you say, I went too far downstairs. And you lose connection with the dream awareness. And you decide to go up the 2 flights of white stairs. It was all dark and you were wearing a headlamp. All right. The place where you feel comfortable, the place where there is the childhood memorabilia is with light and it's white. So good, visible, familiar. I already know that place. The more you go away from that, the darker it gets, and you need a headlamp to even be able to see, and you go downstairs. Jung insists a lot on the difference between the surface and the depths. The fact that we have associated the depths with negative and the surface with positive. This is a primordial vestige of the primitive mind that is reflected here. You are afraid of going deep, even though it is this depth that would allow you to grow. Then we continue. I went upstairs and sensed these doors were alive in the far corner of the room. As I had these thoughts, a door proceeded to wink, I think, or blink and nod as to say, yes, I'm a being. So I just walked in and sat down on a bed. It seemed maybe a child's room, and they broke out into happy musical. I sat next to a smaller teddy-like doll being, but I could sense they were just as conscious as me, and put my hand on her back friendly and swayed in motion with the music. I thought how wild this all was and was like, hey, I'll roll with it. And unfortunately, I thought of my body in bed because I swallowed and licked my lips, and that somehow connected me back to my body. Okay, I think that this is the continuation of the dream, and it's exactly what I was saying for the first part. You go back upstairs to this place of familiarity, and suddenly you are surrounded by those who are alive. These people make you feel less alone, but they're a creation of the dream. So it shows that you are feeling isolated and you're feeling alienated even by your tendency to go back into the comfortable place. But the trick that your brain is trying to pull is it has created these beings that are extensions of you to make you feel less alone, because these beings acknowledge you. They acknowledge your presence and they know that you know that they are beings, and then they start to sing. What is the musical? It's to soothe you, it's to make you feel better and to make you, in a sense, feel less self conscious about the fact that you just push it out because you refuse to go into the darkness. Then you sit next to one and you start to dance with them. So essentially, you become one of the dolls. And what is a doll? A doll is a human representation in the figure of a child, and a doll never ages. In that moment, you become the doll. So you have, in a sense, become the thing that will never have to age. This is the fantasy that your dream is conveying. And the fact that you hated the fact that when you woke up, you lost connection with that and you are connected back to your body, a body that will be forced to age, to me means a lot. And you say, then you say a white dirty looking being sitting on a wooden sort of a rocking chair, white clothes, I think, with braided hair. There was a sense that she had more power I could feel than the others. As my headlamp shone over her and my thoughts occurred, she moved. It was a note of compassion and warmth and acknowledgement. Lots of toys around the house, I think, more than one blob, green dinosaur, which I'd initially thought was me meeting an alien. Okay, so there is one door that is not like the other doors. It's wearing white, so again, a very reassuring color, and it looks like a teddy bear, so it's very fluffy, and it sits on a chair, so it's above the other ones, and it has braided hairs. And you sense it has more powers than the other. And it looks at you with warmth and acknowledgement. So this is again a being created by you to make you feel better about not leaving that room, a room that you say is a room for children. Dreams are fairly transparent, honestly. Sugar in One Piece, where she turns people to toys. A power that, by the way, is completely overpowered because she should be able to do it to anyone, including Kaido. And has a follow-up dream, but first I'll check to see if other people had submitted a dream, because I want to cover as many people as possible. Boom, boom, boom. No, I think that's it. Unless I'm missing dreams that people are sending here. That could be a thing. No, everyone sent the dream directly via private messages, which is excellent. Okay, well, okay, let's take more dreams from people who have already sent a dream. I dreamt, so Nicola Marco sends, I dreamt of a mountain high wall with several different staircases leading up to the top. I chose one that looked safe, but when I got to the top, all the passages to the straight line were open, except for the one from the staircase I chose. Then my girlfriend came and kicked the barrier and pulled me up. I've had doubts in the past about whether I'd chosen the right woman. What do you think? So you dream of a high wall with staircases leading up to the top, and there's not just one, there's many. So the wall is an obstacle, and every staircase is an option to overcome the obstacle. We also can surmise by this that there must be correct options and poor options. There must be options that lead nowhere. And you say that you chose the one that looked safe. So you took not the easy way out, but you took the least risk possible. But when you get to the top, all the passages to the straight line are open except for the ones for the staircase I chose. So every single staircase actually was the right option except for the one you chose. It might show that you have a tough time trusting yourself. And I think we're going to get back on that. 2, it might show that you have a tough time trusting yourself, which leads to your tendency to be too safe and to settle, which then leads to you to realize that now you cannot climb the wall because you are not ambitious enough. Then your girlfriend comes and she kicks that wall and she pulls you up. So in that scenario, she manages to turn your bad decision into a good decision. This to me shows that she's not connected to the dream in the way you might think. It's not about you doubting whether or not you have the right woman. It's about you doubting your own ability to make decisions. In your dream, she's the right woman because she turns your bad decision into a good decision. So that to me is the sign that your brain knows that she's good for you, and it's trying to tell you that the problem is not her, that you're projecting onto her issues with you, things that you need to solve. Then we have who says, this is a recurring dream I've had ever since I was a little kid. It was probably the first dream I can vividly remember. I was at the top of the fridge in my childhood. I moved out of that place and at around 5 years old, started getting the dream around that time too. And my father was below me ready to catch me. And when I would jump down into his arms, I would free fall into the sky and wake up right before hitting the ground with a real sinking feeling in my chest. So this dream is fairly straightforward, right? As a little kid, your dad is here, he's supposed to catch you. You're jumping from a place of danger, but his arms are supposed to be a place of safety. But then as you jump, he disappears and you realize that you're free falling. This might mean the fear of losing your dad, the fear of losing that one protective figure and realizing that now there is no one to catch you. It might also be, in a sense, a form of distrust towards that figure where you cannot trust that person to catch you. And you say that as you get older, small modifications would occur in the dream. For example, your father would be completely absent a while after he passed, and I would still attempt to jump, but this time instead of waking up, I would hit it and see my corpse on the floor. So we connect with the first option, which is your dad was this reassuring presence that should catch you, and when he's passed, you still attempt to jump because you still hope deep down that you're going to be safe and it will protect you, but you don't and you die. That's very traumatic. Chris C. Yes, I did analyze your dream, my friend. Boop. Non. Encore. Good. Your interpretations are invaluable, but the themes are often conscious struggles. How do we combat them? By listening to what I said and trying to see if it relates to aspects of your life that you can influence, which oftentimes you can. That's the entire point of making the unconscious conscious. Yeah. So that's it. I think we don't have any dreams. So what I can do now is just keep an eye on the chat. We can chat for a bit. And I can tell you some of my dreams if you're interested. And keep an eye out if you send more dreams on coffee. Lucky I stopped my steroid cycle a month ago. Now I'm having constant panic attacks. Any tips? You might have fucked up your hormonal balance, or you might have fucked up the way the biology of your brain works. For panic attacks, I would recommend seeing a therapist. You can learn to deal with them. I have panic attacks sometimes, but I know how to deal with them. Oh, Nitrous Enjoyer, you're right. Thank you for reminding me of that. And his dreams are actually pretty funny too. Right, let me share one dream, and then we'll get to Nitrous Enjoyer. So, I've told you in the stream where I told you stories, which by the way, I'll have a whole new batch of stories to tell you guys for following stream. That is going to be at the end of December. I told you about the dream where there's a bird that eats my spine. That was a great dream. But I have other recurring dreams. And so one that I have a lot is one where I go back to school. And I go back to school and I do my best to be consistent and to attend, but I always fail. And I realize that I'm behind, and I realize that I show up to exams and I don't know like the material, and I get terrible grades, and I'm like in front of the page and I don't understand what's going on. And I have 4 hours for the exam, but they just keep passing and I can't write, etc., etc. That is a dream that relates directly to a time period in my life, my first year of college in France, where I was skipping all the time because I was just not challenged and I was bored. And so I really sandbagged on my studies and I barely passed, even though I could have been top of the class if I wanted. And I still hold feelings of shame towards that because it's one of the few moments in my life where I didn't live up to my potential. And so my psyche is constantly trying to make me relieve that to make sure I don't do it again. So it's a recurring dream that I don't see going anywhere. Sometimes you have dreams that you can't work on. They're just warnings that will keep reoccurring until you can somehow convince yourself that you're good. How do you interpret dreams like this? I oftentimes come to different conclusions when you are interpreting people's dreams. Is this a skill? I wouldn't necessarily say it's a skill. Jung clearly states that dream interpretation is colored by the person who interprets. But I cannot help but notice that a lot of people, when I interpret dreams, are like, oh, that resonated with me. So I think that what I'm good at is I'm good at painting a broad picture of symbols and archetypes that might actually make people resonate with what I say, and they think, oh, that makes a lot of sense because I can actually see that in my own life. This is dream analysis. Especially when you analyze one dream, you want to be as broad as possible. And then the more dreams you analyze, if you're like an actual therapist and you spend time with a patient, the more you narrow it down until you have like a clear conclusion of the problem. What if what if I know my struggles, yet I'm unable to overcome them? That is more to do with self-improvement and problem solving than dream analysis. Usually, if you are unable to overcome them, it's because there is a blocker somewhere, and that blocker might still be in the unconscious. Does YouTube pay well? That's a great question. I have no idea. I don't make money from YouTube. I make money from you guys. So if you want to support the channel, coffee page. How do I become more eloquent? By speaking in public as much as possible. Luckily enough for me, in France, this is sort of part of the curriculum. You have to do it as a child. But I know that in the USA and other countries, it's not the case. So you have to find ways. You can join a public speaking club. You can join a Toastmasters if you're an old man in the USA. You can just be an asshole and grab a book and go read in public. I've seen people do that. I don't know why I only dream when I wake up and basically go back to sleep immediately. That is because you are switching from cycles to cycles. It's a different sleep cycle. This is the reason why if you wake up in the night for the bathroom, for example, and you go back to sleep, you are very likely to dream as you go back to sleep. How to beat social anxiety and fear of judgment? You have to develop a self that you're not afraid of showing to the world. Having thoughts of social anxiety and being afraid of being judged shows that deep down you know that there are things in you that you don't like that could be judged. I often feel like a coward. What do I do? Look at the aspects in your life where you feel like a coward and face them head on. Running away in your dreams, we've already seen, doesn't work. Okay. I think we had another dream by you, actually, Nitrous. If I don't have any new messages. Or actually, we have a bunch of new messages. Okay. So we have David S., who sent a dream. Thank you, David. So David says, Hello, NH. Years ago, I had this dream. I saw a vast meadow. It looked like that one Windows wallpaper. I know exactly the one you're talking about. The sky was almost cloudless and very blue. The meadow had these nice rose like flowers, and they were all pure white. It felt very light and blissful. Then the perspective moved, and I saw a single red flower. Seeing it, I started feeling unnerved. So, to start with, environment of the dream is idyllic, pure and mostly white with a blue sky. Then there is a single red flower. The red flower is chaos. It's the introduction of something that is not in line with the rest of the panorama. It's a sign of disorder. We can also interpret the flower and the color of the flower as violence, as blood. It's the color of blood. Actually, let me see if red flower means something. A red flower in a dream can have many meanings, including warning, intensity, and aggression. So we'll see if this is verifiable afterwards. For a while, nothing happened, but then a black cloud appeared with the texture of tar or melted asphalt. It had these red patches like ore veins. It started filling up space around me, and I felt a very tangible pressure in my whole body, not just the skin, but also the inside, as if this liquid solid cloud poured into me. Okay, so clearly, the single red flower was a warning that there was something to come because chaos was starting to introduce itself in your view. It was followed by black clouds. I don't need to explain what black clouds are. They're never a good sign. We associate them in our mind with bad weather. So again, more uncertainty, more chaos. And the texture of it looks extremely dense with red patches. And it starts to go around you and it starts to pressure your body. Everything is consumed by the cloud, the red flower being the very last. I felt like I was in the presence of an all powerful but malevolent god. I could hardly breathe. My heartbeat felt shallow and I felt like I was going to die. That's the last thing I remember of that dream. It's been stuck inside my head since then. Like my brain gives it significance for some reason. Okay. I think that the dream means that you are perceiving your current situation as idyllic and good, but you are also afraid of losing that. There might be something, your red flower in your life, that you perceive as a ticking time bomb. This is exactly what Jung was talking about when he said that prophetic dreams are not prophetic. They look at the past. There is a pattern, something in your life that you know deep down is a problem, but you refuse to face it. You refuse to pluck it. It makes you unnerved, but you do nothing. Just like in the dream, you see the red flower, but you do nothing. And because you do nothing, eventually a black cloud appears. And that black cloud consumes everything, including you. So, in a sense, it's ruining your life. It makes your life horrible. And it feels like an all powerful but malevolent God. This shows that the cloud itself, the consequences of you not acting and removing the red flower, is a force that you know you cannot compete against. So it's your brain telling you, hey, before that happens, you have to do something about it, or else we are going to die. Maybe it's not that dire in your everyday life, but this might be exactly what this dream means, especially since it's apparently sticking with you. Is this dream dictionary public? Yeah, you just have to like type dream dictionary on Google. It's not like super accurate, but the issue is that Jung always refused to create a dictionary of dreams because it goes against his beliefs, because he didn't want to create a rigid theory of dreams. The issue being that he also tells us that it's important to know mythology and primitive thinking, and there are certain symbols that I just don't know enough about. So I like to look around to see if I can find an interpretation. How do you overcome past trauma of getting verbally bullied? I was never physically bullied because I will always snap back. But when it's verbally, I can't, for some reason, any help. You have to look at, I think it's because in your head, you have a hierarchy of in a sense, oppression, where you feel like physical violence is worse than verbal violence, and it's not. The two are equally bad, and the two are equally damaging. When someone attacks you physically, you respond physically. When someone attacks you verbally, you respond verbally. I know that this is a trick of cowards to use verbal aggression, because that way, if you lash out, they can retreat and say, oh, it's just words, I'm just teasing, it's just a joke. Why can't you take a joke? Fuck these people, the strategy doesn't work. Dish it back. And if they can't take it, too bad, but I guarantee you that they will never try again. And then we had just so your video on legs, is heel elevated squat good for rectus femoris and all four heads of the quads? Well, I do think that it's good for rectus femoris. Now, the idea that it's going to develop all of the heads equally might not necessarily be true. I do feel it more in my VMO than normal squats, but you still want to have something on the side. So split squats, heel elevated squats tends to really be good. So it was revealed to me in a dream meme might be true. Yes, most memes have a part of truth. And H, what is the meaning of an intruder coming into your house and fighting him? That is a dream that men have. It's just your productive instinct. It's your brain trying to teach you how to react in the case of a home invasion. Interestingly enough, there have been studies that show that women do not have these dreams and they don't have these thoughts. So if you're a guy, I guarantee you that you spend a lot of time daydreaming about fighting a bear, fighting an intruder, protecting your family. Women never think about that. They only think about them being protected. This is a difference in psychic context. And H, I often dream of fighting giant mythical creatures, fully embracing my shadow side with a wide, maniacal grin and fighting the beast like there's no tomorrow, entering the heat of battle like a high. So one, it's part of you embracing your barbarian side. And two, it's also a way for your brain to, like, in a sense, gas you up, because it makes you fight these giant creatures, which once you've done that, it's much easier to face these simple issues of your day-to-day lives. Why do you have sleep paralysis so much where I feel like a threat is near? Because your body is sleeping and your mind is awake. I don't know if there is a cure. And H, I keep seeing girls I used to like in my dreams. I mean, you might be holding on to past flames, which might show that there is a lack of present flames in your life. Can you please explain the title? You just tuned in. Well, the title would be best explained by watching the first part of the video. For the first part, we covered chapter 3, part 1 of chapter 3 of Modern Man in Search of a Soul, where Jung essentially explains that the majority of our issues comes from a lack of self-awareness, and that once you know who you are, the enemies, so the problems in life, reveal themselves for what they are, which is just a manifestation of your unconscious, which is fully in your control. So once you know yourself, you have no enemies. How much use is there to analyzing dreams that made you feel good? So far, none of the dreams have been positive. That is because it's a quirk of the human mind. The human mind tends to focus a lot on the negative and not so much on the positive, because if you focus on the negative, you have a highest chance of survival. This is why we tend to remember nightmares and not dreams. Okay, so Cav had a follow-up. Cav was the guy with the black dog, and I told him that we needed to know more, and if he had a follow-up dream, most likely he would teach us something. So he says, I remember now that I had a dream including the black dog the next night, but I didn't tell anyone the story or write it down, so I don't remember it. But I remember the whole day after the first dream, I was joking with my friends that I would win the next time it showed up and that there would be a rematch the next night. I wasn't joking about the feeling that I would have the dream the next night. I had a feeling of anticipation for the night. Okay, so you don't know what happened, but do you still get that dream of the black dog? Because if not, it means that you just kicked its ass, so you solved the problem. Okay, so that's not a dream. Good night, good sass. thoughts on Bram Stoker Dracula, being reading it for my book club, super interesting read. Well, might as well go into it. So I love that book, first and foremost. Probably one of my favorites of the vampire style of genre. And it's the original one. Now, if you look at the structure of Bram Stoker's Dracula, first and foremost, the story begins in Transylvania. And this is important because this is the idea of an Englishman who goes into a foreign country. And in the foreign country, what does he encounter? He encounters an old man with homosexual tendencies. So already there is a lot of xenophobia in the start of Dracula. It's the idea that all of these barbarians have peculiar cultures which might involve visiting guests. In the start of the story, you also start to see the unraveling of the relationship between Dracula and wolves, the fact that he's abnormal. He's described as like this old man who is not like actually eating anything. So it's all again part of this idea of othering the foreign. Then the very interesting part starts because the hero goes back to Britain, but when he goes back, he doesn't go back alone. Dracula follows him. And this is a very important part of post colonial literature in Great Britain, especially because with Great Britain having all of these colonies in India, for example, there was always the underlying thought and fear of the colonies going and colonizing the motherland back. So, because you went and you invaded, the retribution, quote unquote, is that now your country is going to become invaded. And this is the fear that Dracula was really talking about. The fact that this new thing was being introduced in the country and it brings what with it? Disease. And a disease that affects who? Women. Because the women that get bitten by Dracula are women. I just said it. The people that get bitten are women. And this is, of course, there's a subtext about sexuality. The fact that the immigrant and the foreign is going to pervert and corrupt the women of Britain and make them more sexual. Because in truth, the curse of the vampire is the women now go out at night to suck blood. They have red lips and they have blushed cheeks. All of that are symbols of sexual arousal. So that's mostly the theme, the underlying theme of Dracula. Dracula is also a very scary novel. I remember the scene with the wolf that busts through the window, scared the shit out of me as a teenager. But it also is one of my favorite scenes of all time. There's also a scene where Dracula is in the dark, in a dark cave, and that connects to dream analysis, where he sees them, the heroes, but they can't see him. And that's, I mean, it's part for the course. It's the fear of the unknown and of the thing with eyes that can see you, but you cannot see it. What do you think about his relationship with Renfield? I think it's very homoerotic. I think the book is written to be homoerotic. And then we also, of course, have to talk about Van Helsing, who is like the old, grizzled British man who restores order by killing the gay foreign man. I mean, you can't be more obvious than that in terms of symbolism. But why did you choose Transylvania? Why vampires? That is because the myth of the vampire, and I'm sorry, I'm not super sharp on this, but I think it's because it comes from Slavic countries. So one, there was the mythology and the image of Vlad the Impaler, Dracula Vlad Tepes, that was nicknamed Dracula. So this is where he comes from. And two, there was something called the vampire. I think it was the vampire. And the vampire was a mythological creature, just like the loup-garou, that in a sense possessed the corpses of the people who are dead to in a sense rebirth them and force them to look for blood. So the myth of the zombie and the vampire are very close, and this is why to this day we still find tombs even in Ireland with corpses that have a rock in between their jaw, because the people in fear of the vampire coming back would open the jaw and just put a rock and close the jaw to prevent it from biting people. Sorry if I ignored you. It's just that I cannot answer every single comment. Yeah, vampire, vampire. Up. Okay. Well, my good friends, oh là, putain, c'est chaud. Merde. C'est bon? Non. Okay. I think this is a good moment to end the stream. Thank you for being present today for the first Wednesday philosophy stream. I did not expect the lecture to be done that fast. Most likely, this will not happen next week because next week I think I have the end of chapter 3, which will not be as long. So I think I'm going to make it so that we do chapter 3 and chapter 4 next week. So the lecture will be longer. I want to do 2-hour lectures, and then we'll only do 1 hour of dream analysis because I think 2 hours of dream analysis is simply too much. That's going to be that. So yes, next week, Wednesday, we do part 2 and part 2 of the dream analysis. You had a video that dropped this morning, so we're good on that. We are going to reunite this Saturday with a dating Q&A relationship stream. So same time, 2 p.m. And then Sunday, there is an hypertrophy log. I've done my training for like a week, so I'm going to release that on Sunday. And that's that. You're going to be spoiled with a lot of things. And next week, there's another physics review. So if you're the type of people who didn't send our physics review, you're going to get a chance to do that. So as always, thank you for watching. If you are watching the replay, I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support the channel, coffee page. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day.